Well, good evening, fellow explorers. Hello, Jennifer.
Well,
Lovely to see you as usual. My sister in the deep, deep, the tinfoil hat society.
thank you.
There's, I purposely left the title off of this one because I didn't know who would show up and how many people would show up. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how this.
Sure,
So
just
far,
some
so
things.
far there's zero. But anyway, so tonight we're going to kind of start where we left off last week and talk a little bit about the idea or the concept that Satan and Lucifer are two different entities or separate entities. And if you guys didn't get to watch the video from the channel that I posted last week, I did watch it. I watched the entire video this week and I was absolutely blown away by what he presented or they presented. And I had to rewatch a lot of parts of it because I would probably think a little differently of it if these guys weren't like Bible scholars. Like if they weren't like, especially David, like if he wasn't like able to quote scripture off the top of his head and know, you know, what was relevant and what was not relevant and yada yada yada, and the historical aspects, the timing, all that other stuff.
Right, right.
Um, but without playing the whole video, I don't know how to describe it the same way he did because every couple minutes he's like quoting scripture and saying this is why this is this, this is why this is this, and so I started to take notes and I'm like, oh my god. So I got like to a full page of notes and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to fit this into like a couple hours or whatever. So
Hmm.
I'm just going to fly off by the seat of my pants here.
Okay.
Um, and start with he had mentioned one thing in particular that caught my attention early on in the video was that in no place in the Bible or in the Word of God is Lucifer and Satan compared to each other, like referenced as the same being or the same
Hmm.
person.
Right, right.
And we've always come to know Lucifer as a fallen angel. People, you know, kind of push that idea that Lucifer is a fallen angel, but he quotes several scriptures and other Bible scholars who reference these scriptures um, that talk about Lucifer as having a father. And so, like, not God being the father, but an actual pagan god. And I can't remember Al Shah Salah, something or other. I can't even pronounce
Right.
it.
Shahir.
Yes, something
Yeah,
like that. I
yeah,
think, hold on, let me see. What does it say here? Hillel ben Sahar. Yeah.
yeah. Right.
Anyway, long story short, the he goes into the idea that you have to take into context the actual Hebrew words that were used in, you know, that they translated from. And the like morning star, like when they reference Lucifer, they talk about morning star several times or morning of the morning. And that literally means what I just said, the al whatever, the Halal ben Sahar.
Hmm.
And so the scripture references that on a couple occasions. And let's see, because it speaks of Lucifer as having a father, and we know angels didn't have fathers. Angels weren't like didn't have a mommy and a daddy angel. They were just created.
Hmm.
Um, so I thought that was intriguing to begin with.
Very.
He said that, let's see, like he references Isaiah a lot, like Isaiah 14 specifically, like verse 4, and that addresses the whole idea of Nimrod because it was talking about Babylon and I think I'm taking this out of context now, but it introduces Nimrod as one of those people that tried from earth to ascend to heaven kind of thing. And it
Right.
speaks about Lucifer the same way. Like he didn't start in heaven, he started on earth. He wasn't knocked from heaven to earth. He
Okay.
started on earth and aspired to ascend to the third heaven, to the throne of God, and
Mhm.
yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
So that so the first 20 minutes of the video kind of takes that and uses, hello, Linda, how you doing?
Hello, Linda.
So the first 20 minutes of the video kind of takes that concept. Here you go. This is why Lucifer can't be an angel. Like this is why he has to be a separate entity. And then, gosh, I can't remember the exact comparison, because he starts talking about the underworld and the kings of the underworld and Nimrod and Satan as almost like a class, like a Satan as like almost like a God, what's the word I'm trying to think of, Jennifer? Not a class, but like an occupation or something. Like
okay, right. Okay. Occupation,
like
angelic.
yeah, like you would have like kings and queens, and like then you have Satan. Like that was almost portrayed as like an occupation some of these evil
Gotcha.
principalities had, or whoever. Like, and again, I'm probably butchering it and I'm probably remembering it.
No, that makes sense because I'm echoing. Do you hear it?
Hold on, let me stop my screen share here. Okay, is it better?
Let's see. Testing. Yes, I still hear it. I hear it on my.
Yeah, I don't hear it. But Linda, do you hear an echo?
Yeah, do you hear it, Linda? Now I don't hear it now. Okay. I don't hear it. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. Oh, you know what I wanted to say is that what you're saying, it makes me think of, again, I may have mentioned that just the term Pharaoh, when you think of Pharaoh, that's not one Pharaoh, that's many pharaohs. When you think of king or anything like you're saying, or Candace, which I'm really into Ethiopian history. So a Candace is the queen. So when, we hear about Queen Candace and stuff like that, that's almost like saying queen. It's right. Redundant, because Candace is the office, not the person. So I think that's good to, understand, because it's going to be a lot that has been lost. And that's the thing. Like, I want to, if I can just take a minute just to kind of share my heart on how I know this is controversial to delve into these subjects, but for some reason it rattles the church of all places. When anyone sets out to read apocryphal letters and books, it is a threat. That is why a lot of us have been afraid to venture. I was so afraid to read the Book of Enoch. Just to think that I own a book, Ethiopian Bible, that shows so much like I've gotten through a lot of, resistance. Are you sure this will bring rain? Shut up and listen to the expert. Oh gosh.
That's how I feel sometimes, it's just like,
yeah,
when as soon as you said that, it reminded me of this meme. Something always reminds me of a meme.
Memes are powerful, and that's also historical. Meming and all that, it is history. And that's why I don't understand why people who profess to be believers of Jah, even saying Jah for some people is like, whoa, what are you saying? What are you introducing, some kind of extra biblical, antichrist stuff? It's like, no. Didn't you listen to reggae music? I mean, come on. They've been saying Jah for years and decades. Like, what is the big deal of saying Jah? If I say Abba, these are terms based on a relationship people have, but they're not outside of biblical, truth. So I hope that these things don't cause division among believers, because I'll just say one thing for people who are very haughty about what they believe about, oh, you should only read this. I just want to say this and go on the record. The church here in America does not have any place to dictate or make anyone feel bad for wanting to read apocryphal texts, because the church in America has failed miserably. And I don't care if I step on toes, because I have receipt after receipt after receipt. I've been a church person my whole entire life. I'm a card carrying Christian who has been in church my whole life. And my thing is this: I have never had more pushback than the church when I would go out and pray in front of Planned Parenthood, when I would want to do things to stop the slaughter of the babies, when I learned and was convicted of that sin. There was little when it came to the church. So I don't want to hear anything. And I will tell anybody who wants to take issue with me reading the apocryphal books, and they want to come down against me for doing that, I want to then tell them, what has the church done in terms of trying to sort this out so that we would have had an easier time when we're uncovering us. This is new to many of us. We're just seeking to understand history. And it's just like anything. If I were to read Virgil, if I were to read this book, I would get no pushback. I would get no criticism from anyone. Why is that? Is this so much more worthy that it doesn't deserve scrutiny? That's my point. Why can't we read these texts and letters based on just historical scholarship? Why does it threaten Christians? They need to ask themselves, why does it threaten a Christian if another Christian wants to sort through the apocryphal text? Because again, the Church of America has no place to be worried about stuff like that. Y'all got bigger fish to fry. But you've lost the ground, and that's why this country's being judged. Because repentance should be what you really want to scream and jump up and down about. Why don't you worry about repentance? Not about me reading apocryphal books. Okay, so I'm done with my rant. I just preface that for any Christians that want to come across and get offended at something like this, at people wanting to be scholars. That's what the Bereans were. The Bereans read and they counted themselves what? Faithful, because they were always studying. And just because books are canonized doesn't mean that's it for the account. This is the time of God revealing. That's why the book of Enoch is right now a thing, is because we're in the times. So I just want anybody to just calm down about people wanting to read apocryphal books. Calm down. We got bigger. Get offended at some bigger things, because you got a lot to be offended about, not this. Be offended at Planned Parenthood. Be offended that the churches were closed for 2020. Get offended there. You could spend a lot of time in offense with the church and what it hasn't done. I'm sorry, but I get a little heated.
No, hey.
You know, I had sister. I want to read the book of the bee. I want to read the book of Adam and Eve. What's so dangerous about it? What's so dangerous about that?
We're going to talk about that tonight.
These books are dangerous. Oh, really? Are they? You got TV shows that say Lucifer. You have a TV show literally called Lucifer. Do you go and rail against the studio and the producers for putting that filth on TV for children to ingest? No. But they would rather get offended at Christians that want to read the book of Enoch. Wow.
Yes.
That's why I don't go to church. That is exactly why. I'm done. I'm
100% agree with you. And we talked, Jennifer and I talked talked a little bit about this beforehand, and I'm always of the mind that just the way I was raised and who I am, I'm always worried about stepping on people's toes or offending somebody. The old me, and I should say, would have been like that. But recently, like in the last year or so, I could feel it in my heart. I could feel God pushing me. And Jennifer talked about this revelation. I could feel like God's pushing me to do this, to do what we're doing, because he wants us to see more than what the church has allowed us to see over however many centuries it's been.
Amen.
I mean, think about it. And I'm not saying that the Bible is not the word of God. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's the only word of God. And I don't think God stopped talking to, hey, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
And I don't think that God stopped talking to people like in that time period. It's like, here, all this crazy stuff happened, all this big, and then it just stopped. I feel like God's telling me to get out of my comfort zone and not worry about offending my friends. And if they're my friends, they'll stay my friends. But if not, then it's not a big deal. But there's a lot of people, as Jennifer stated, that stand on that book only and will not deviate from it. And there's some people that will not deviate from a certain version of it or a certain interpretation of it. There's so much that you could stand on the word of God. You could stand on, if we're going to use the Bible, you can stand on the Bible. I learned this just this week from this video that Jennifer sent me last week, and this gentleman was a Bible scholar, is a Bible scholar, not was. And he used the Bible. He quoted the Bible every time he made a point that was controversial. He quoted the Bible, and he quoted other supporting texts to support his claim or his revelation, whatever you want to call it. And that kind of stuff interests me, because not having been like Jennifer, I wasn't a churchgoer my whole life. I did come from a very religious family, but I was one of those kids that questioned everything. Question. Why is the sky blue? Why, whatever. And so I rebuked that when I was younger. And so I still have that same mentality. Like, I still question everything in like almost a childlike way. And I'm not doing it to piss people off. Hey, Karen, I'm not doing it to, we're exploring these ideas and taking this journey because it's interesting. We're not going to go to hell because we're exploring these ideas and because we're exposing this stuff or we're talking about it.
No way.
And God knows your heart. I can't emphasize that enough. If I get one feeling since I had that encounter last year, if I have one overwhelming feeling, is that God's got my back. That's like the feeling I have, is like, God's got my back. He knows who I am. He knows my heart. He knows what kind of person I am. He knows I'm not trying to deceive anybody or do anything wrong or hurt anybody.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that's been hidden, and he knows that. And that's why it's called the Great Awakening. There's so many things happening right now on such a level that's never been seen before. And people are uncovering things all the time. And this show, The Midnight Ride from Now You See TV, I've kind of become addicted to that show. And it's like, it's interesting because
I knew it was going to happen. I'm sorry. No, I knew it was going to happen.
He could back the stuff up. Everything that he backs it up. Even if it's right or wrong, there's something there. It just didn't come out of thin air. Like, he didn't come up with this concept out of thin air.
Right.
So
yeah. And he loves learning like a lot of us do. And one thing about, I'm going to say that I really like about John and David from Now You See TV, The Midnight Ride, is that like you said, they're not trying to deceive. You could just see they're not trying to just, oh, they're trying to create a cult and get everybody to go up into a mountain and like whatever, drink Kool-Aid. No, it's not even like that. It's and I know people can counter that by saying, oh, well, the devil knows scripture and he knows how to manipulate scripture and all of that. Yes, yeah, sure, we know that. But the Bible, the one thing that I like about their message is they're not telling you the Bible's not reliable and true. The Bible is the foundation. Apocryphal texts and different fragments, if you want to go and search and read, what's wrong with reading it? If it correlates with the Bible, but the Bible is the foundation of truth. So if anything in an apocryphal text is not lining up with the Bible, then like with anything else, this takes maturity for one thing. I wouldn't tell somebody who's just straight off of the, they just landed. I wouldn't say here's the Apocrypha. Start out with that. Like, come on.
Yeah. Hey, here's the Book of Enoch. Here's some light reading for you.
I mean, come on, you wouldn't do that. Like, you wouldn't give a kid a steak, okay, like a baby. You wouldn't give a baby a steak, and that's what it is with maturity. We have to bump around a little bit, and that's what happens. Like a lot of us we have been deceived. We have fallen into traps. But the thing about, like you said, God knows you. He loves you. He always calls us back. He's the shepherd. If you're looking to him as the shepherd, he's not going to shepherd you somewhere where you're in danger. If you're his child, that's the difference. It's like with anybody, you're not going to go shepherding other children that aren't yours, But that's why I like David and John's scholarship. Is the Bible is the foundation of their scholarship. I see nothing.
Yeah, and I don't. That's a perfect way to say it, and because we've in this show before have talked about foundations and having a solid foundation, because you can't build anything or learn anything without a solid foundation. And when you have that foundation to go back to and to reference, I mean, like in the first 20 minutes of the video, it's an hour and a half long. Not only is he able to establish that Lucifer and Satan aren't the same entity, but he's also able to establish the fact that Lucifer has a father, so he's not an angel. And also, with the way the text reads, the Bible reads, and the references to these different passages, it points to Lucifer as being a Nephilim, and which we know Nephilim exist. Nephilim's in the Bible. But like I said, that whole video, I could literally talk for days about that video, because there's so much packed into that hour and a half, the concepts that are in there. It's hard to, unless I just play the whole video, it's hard to actually just talk about it. But for those of you that haven't or don't know what I'm talking about, here is, I just want to share this real quick.
You all will love, as, what is it? Now You See TV. We've recommended it before.
Yeah, it's, the title of the video is called The Bloodline of Lucifer, Halel ben Sahar. And he brings the goods in this video. That's all I got to say. He brings the goods. Whether it's true or not, there's a lot of things in here that make you think that it's possible. Based on the scripture, this is actually a possible concept, if not an actual concept. And we have to think that way, because the Bible itself is interpreted by people, by human beings, translating from one language to another. So there is interpretation involved in that. Like, even because he stresses like the actual Hebrew words in the original texts, in a lot of cases, you have to take the literal meaning of the word and not interpret what you think it should mean in the Bible, but take the literal meaning of the word to come to a conclusion about something. So everything has always been about interpretation since the beginning of time. It's always been about interpretation.
Exactly.
With the exception of like Moses talking to the burning bush or the parting of the Red Sea and that kind of stuff. Those weren't interpretations, but when the Council of Nicaea, everybody that wrote these 66 books or accounts, at some point somebody stepped in and made an interpretation about something when they put it down on paper, or when they took it from the original text and put it down on paper. So anyway, I'm not going to go off on a tangent on that because you guys are going to really love me for the next stuff we're going to talk about.
And also, John, what's interesting to me is that even though I've heard Hebrew and, I've learned some Hebrew, my dad married a Jewish woman. So I learned some Hebrew and things like that and kept the, feast and things. I've had times in my life where I've kept the feast. I've been more of a Messianic Christian. So I would go to Messianic synagogues, things like that. My stepmother wasn't Messianic, but she's now more Hasidic, like she's going towards like Orthodoxy. But what I want to say about that is Hebrew and Paleo Hebrew are really like, that's amazing. Paleo Hebrew. I never knew about Paleo Hebrew. I never even like discussed Paleo Hebrew. But now that we're studying like fragments and clay tablets and things, like I'm really into these clay tablets that have been found, these fragments, because you're the same as I. All of us, we love each other. That's why we resonate. Is like we like to take puzzle. I've always loved big puzzles. Okay, are you that kind of person? Anybody here? Like if your grandma was putting a puzzle together on the big table, the big card table, you're over there finding pieces too. The more pieces, the better the puzzle. Like if it's 1,000 pieces, that's even better. Or they have 3D puzzles that you can build up and everything. So these fragments of Noah, when I started learning about Gilgamesh, I didn't know about Gilgamesh until a few months ago. I never really got into anything like that. I don't think I ever heard about Gilgamesh. Anybody? I didn't know about that. So delving into that and then revisiting Noah and the flood account. Every culture has an account of a flood, a deluge. I think that's powerful that you can go to any tribe all over the world realm and they would have artwork. They would have some piece of something, oral history, something that's been passed down. And it's like what do you call it? Like a memory in your DNA, epigenetic. It's an epigenetic memory in human DNA that there was a flood that happened. So that right there lets us know that this flood in the Noah account is very important, along with Genesis. And I'm really excited about the end being in the beginning. And I've heard someone say that before in church. Like, all of my church life hasn't been a disaster. I'm not going to say that. But I remember a man of God once saying that the end is found in the beginning. So Genesis is extremely exciting to me to revisit.
And the original PDF that I showed on the show the other day before I start talking about it, because I have like 20 slides that involve it. Guess I didn't.
Casey's here. Look. Hey, Casey.
Hey, Casey. Let's see. Where is it? I put it under the author's name. I don't know. Either way, if you guys remember a couple shows ago, I posted a recently declassified. It was declassified under Trump's administration. It was a book called The Adam and Eve Story. It was by a gentleman named Chan Thomas, and I downloaded the PDF of it, but it's highly redacted. But there's been people that have put out a bunch of stuff recently that have a mostly unredacted version of it. So I'm trying to find that version because
Wow.
what they're posting is, and again, what Jennifer said earlier, take that to heart because what I'm about to show you is going to cripple some of the churchianity mentality in some people. So
Don't be scared.
I apologize ahead of time. Again, this is not meant to be a right or wrong thing. Like I'm trying to say this is true or not. We're just putting it out there because it's there, and why not explore it? And this is the big reason why I want to talk about it. It's because when this guy wrote this, it was immediately classified by the CIA, by the government. Like it immediately got classified. So what was in this book that the CIA freaked out and classified it? So we're going to start with that concept anyway. So keep that in mind. And if you hear an echo, let me know. You shouldn't. I'm not going to share the audio. I'm just going to share the screen. So, all right. So, and this was the title of, this was from like the Daily Mail in the UK. The title of this article was Jesus was a scholar who lived in India and was picked up by a UFO on Easter Sunday, claims newly published book, which was classified by the CIA for 50 years. The Adam and Eve story was written by U.S. Air Force worker Chan Thomas. And this guy had access to, at the time, whatever UFO research they were doing, that kind of stuff. So keep that in the back of your head too, the guy that wrote this. Thomas worked as a UFO researcher for an aerospace company in the 1960s. His book claims Jesus lived in India for several years, not mentioned in the Bible. It also claims Jesus was then abducted by UFOs after his death by crucifixion. So let's see, moving on here. There's this passage here I wanted to read. Like I said, I got a lot of slides on this, so bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a word that I've heard a lot recently over the last year is the word Naga. So just keep that in mind.
No. If you say that a little bit, you got to say very carefully. If you're in certain places, you don't want to say that word. Like the whole bar will get quiet. You shouldn't be in a bar anyway. No.
That's right. In the remarkable text, Thomas claims Jesus lives with the Naga tribe in northern India for almost 18 years in the period of his life, which isn't mentioned in the Bible. Curiously enough, there was a tribe in the extreme north of India called the Naga tribe, Thomas wrote. They told the British of Jesus having been there as a late teenager, young adult who attended the Nakal temple as a student and graduate of the temple.
Yikes. Okay. Wait a minute. Time out. Okay, wait. Let me just say something real quick. Okay, this is what I love. This is vibrant, everybody. Come on. Drop it in the chat atmosphere. What do you think? Okay, I want to say this, John, okay? I want to say this about the Naga, okay? The Naga, from my understanding, now, whoever knows about the Naga, please help me, okay, if I'm wrong. My understanding is that they are a serpentine people. So Naga, meaning, I believe it means like dragon, serpent, snake.
It's snake-like.
Snake-like. So the Nagas, I know we've heard about in Indian mythology and things like that. When you see artwork depictions, in reliefs, and that's another thing I love about what we do and study is that history is in stone. The stones will cry out, right? So these reliefs and things like that, I've seen depictions of Nagas, and they're like, half human, and then the bottom half looks snake-like.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, already I have a sort of like, I'm kind of like recoiling, to use like a pun. I'm recoiling because I'm like, whoa, the Nagas and Jesus, like, I know that a lot of those depictions have snakes. So that's my disconnect would be like this. the Nagas. I've heard the Essenes. You know what I'm saying? Like the Essenes.
Like
That
the Syrians or the Essenes?
the Essenes, which was a certain sect that
Okay.
they were very like they were strict in the way that they lived. Like I believe the Essenes, they had strict hygiene things. Oh, okay. Nagas are people who worship the snake. Also, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. See, that's the thing about the Nagas. But the Essenes, I'm just kind of like in terms of I'm curious. I'll just say I'm curious.
When you rub your lips, I know you're curious.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm like, okay, all right. Because there's a lot going on. Like I've been recently curious about the first book of Adam and Eve. Like, first book of Adam and Eve, things like that. Some of those accounts.
Yeah, if you because you just put out a video yesterday called "Why Satan Hated Adam and Eve." Correct?
Yes. And I got somebody coming at me, everybody. I had to get rid of a person who was the thing was I don't mind someone not agreeing with whatever I'm saying. I've never said I'm some expert. I always say please, add in. I don't mind a good debate, but if somebody's going to come at me like already insulting me from the start of it, I'm like, he's like, you're just making things up, huh? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm making things up now. First of all, my channel doesn't say the First Church of Jennifer, so it's not a church, okay? I say I'm just looking at narratives, unraveling them, learning. That's all I claim.
And Jennifer literally does that. She's literally buried in a pile of stuff, and she doesn't come up for air for days.
For days, he knows this, and like, my thing is like, why would that incite someone to attack somebody right off the bat? It's like, okay, you don't agree with it. Just give a reason why. Be mature about that part at least, because I can't engage with somebody who's just going to come, you're just making stuff up. Why does Satan hate? Why would he hate? In other words, I'm like, are you like a advocate for Satan right now? Like it didn't sound too like, I don't know. It was weird, So I'm just like, and that's why a lot of times I did mention to people, like, it's good to have a small, like, nice, intimate group of people, because somebody new might stumble on your stuff. They watch one video and attack you. It's like, once you start with maybe some other videos, and you'll see that I've never claimed to be an authority on this stuff. It's like, gosh.
Yeah, people generally attack things that they don't understand or they're afraid of. So obviously if somebody's coming at you like a spider monkey, for those of you that haven't seen Talladega Nights, it's funny. You have to, it's not like an Academy Award winning movie, but
I love that.
Every time I need a good laugh, I watch Talladega Nights, or I watch Step Brothers, or I watch, actually, Holmes and Watson too is another one. If you haven't seen that, that is epically funny. So anyway, something about Will Ferrell and this other guy, and I can't remember his name, but that combination is just, they're hilarious to listen to. And
they really
so
are.
anyway,
or just I like what is it, dodgeball? I shouldn't like
yeah,
it.
that's a whole nother category of
I probably shouldn't like it anymore, right, everybody? It's like, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge
you can dodge a ball.
Really the best line in that movie. If you can dodge a wrench.
Yes, and Casey, that's right. Demons come out of people in chat. Some are really nasty. Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly, Casey. My goodness.
That's
what
like
happened to civility? Can we just have conversations? Start there? Gosh.
This is what we were talking about earlier in the show, and what Jennifer was talking about. That people don't like to have their realities questioned, like things that they've come to accept as fact. We're seeing it right now all over the world in almost every aspect of life. People are overreacting to a lot of things because they don't want their world rocked. They don't want the status quo changed. They want to get back to, and I hate this phrase because we never had a normal life. But people keep using the phrase, "I just want to get back to my old life," or "I just want to get back to the way things were," or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
eh.
Well, that does get me too, because it's like we normalized a toxic civilization and society culture, and
Mhm.
there's no going back to pre 2020. I hate to tell people because they think you're being a doomer, but what was so good? What was so good about it? Like, we were asleep to all these horrific things. I mean, for the most part, and we were, just going in a direction. A lot of us needed to have our, turnaround, and
Well,
that's
people they purposely kept people too busy to care or to understand what was going on. I mean,
yeah,
look at what they made people accept as a normal American family life was, you went to school, you went to college, got a job, had a family, had kids, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, and then it eventually got to the point where if, both parents had to work, so the only free time they had was sitting in front of the boob tube at night watching Archie Bunker or whatever else was on, late at night, late or 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening.
mm,
And they'd go to bed because they'd come home tired from work. They'd
yeah,
want to, they'd chat at the table. That's one thing I miss was the family chats, hey, how was school, blah, 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 So
right,
you'd talk at the table, you'd eat, and then afterwards you'd either go to your room, do your homework, and then mom and dad would go watch TV or do whatever. But they always figured out a way to make it so hard to earn a living, or to, like, you're just reaching for that carrot, like the carrot keeps moving, like that goalpost keeps moving. So you got to work harder, you got to do this, you got to just trust the media, just trust your politicians. So that's one part of your life you don't have to worry about. Keep working, keep paying taxes, keep doing this. Just,
mhm,
for me, that didn't really change until, yes, exactly, latchkey kids. Absolutely.
yeah,
Like, I'm a Gen Xer, and like my kids would have been like latchkey kids, because a lot of parents at that, like in the late 80s, early 90s, whatever, the TV was the babysitter. So the
yeah,
kids had their own keys. They'd come home, make mac and cheese or whatever, and they'd watch TV all day long. Hey,
right.
Kyle, how you doing?
Hey, Kyle.
Um,
Mm,
so they purposely made it that way. But as shows like, and I have to give credit to this because I can't tell you how, and this sounds weird that a TV show changed my life, but when the X-Files came out, I
mm,
was a religious watcher of the X-Files.
okay.
And after having watched the entire, however many seasons there were, 10 or 11 or whatever it was,
Mhm,
that made me question everything. Literally, that show started because I always had the mentality that I questioned everything to begin with, but I didn't question like society stuff. I only
mm,
questioned kid stuff. Like, I
yeah,
was always questioning the Bible, and I was always questioning just things that didn't make sense to me. But
okay.
I wasn't old enough to really pay attention to the way the world worked.
Mhm,
And without social media and that kind of stuff, you went out and played with your friends, you rode your bike. In my case, I went and rode motorcycles, dirt bikes and whatever.
mhm,
And so there was always things to fill time. So I never had time to, except for that one period when I was late in high school, like junior, senior year, when I really started looking into Bigfoot. But that was a whole different thing, because I caught a book on Bigfoot in Bluff Creek, California, and then so I went off on this tangent on that. But anyway,
okay.
but
Yeah.
the X-Files made me think about, what if what they're saying is true? Because they even though they both work for the FBI, they made it. Have you seen the X-Files, Jennifer?
Only a little. I remember when it was out, a lot of people I worked with would come to work and talk about the X-Files. I worked with a girl who was really, her and her husband were all into it. So I knew a little bit about it.
You have to watch the series. You would love the series. You would
Okay.
also love the series Fringe. There was a series that came out later
Oh,
called
I heard of that.
Fringe.
Oh, okay.
That blew me away too. That was like
Yeah.
X-Files on steroids.
Really?
And
Oh, wow.
so that whole period of 2 decades or whatever it was,
Mhm.
I really started questioning a lot of things, and stuff just started not making sense to me. And I started losing friends, started, hanging out with different people. But to my original point, they've made it for most people, they've made it difficult to question anything and to really spend time researching and that kind of stuff. Because unless it's like an obvious, like, hey, they lied about that on the news or whatever, unless it's something obvious like that, people won't
Yeah.
question it.
They
Like
won't.
there's
And it's the way they memory hole it, like, where if it did come out, because one of the things I'm really curious about going back into, and I think that John and David might mention it, or either Rob Skiba. If you haven't heard of Rob Skiba, he's another one. He has passed away though, but he has some great content that I learned about actually in a chat from Now You See TV. Somebody turned me on to Rob Skiba. But one of the things about starting to question things like you did with like the X-Files, starting that with you, is that a lot of people are just so afraid to be outside of the clique, whatever that is,
Mhm.
to be different and to be willing to be that odd person, that gets mocked, because for some reason being mocked is the worst thing that can happen, like, to people. They don't want to be mocked. It feels bad. It definitely doesn't feel good. You know, even today, like, for instance, let me just tell you this real quick. I was at the store and I had to pop into Target. Yeah, I went into Target real quick to pick up something. And so,
Pick up some kids' books.
yes, and I went to the checkout and nobody was manning the checkout. Can you imagine? And this was like, it must have been three in the afternoon or something. So nobody, but you see the people, you see them around that work for the, the
Mhm.
store, but then you see people checking out on the automated, the self-checkout stuff. So that is popping. People are lined up ready to do that. No workers on the cash registers. So I just stopped and I caught eyes with somebody who didn't have a mask on, because it's so hard to talk to people in masks. But you kind of look for people that are like not in masks. And I looked at them like a couple. I said, look at this. It's nobody that can check us out. Like, they only want us to going over here to self-checkout. And I said, I hate doing that because it takes jobs away from the people they don't realize that their jobs are being taken away from them, and
Mhm.
it's happening right under their noses. And so I think that somebody heard me. It was the manager, and he hurried up oh, I'll take you. And I started talking to him. I said, I'm so glad to talk to you, a human. I said, I'd like to say hello and see how, have a human. I don't want to check out on your robots that put your employees out of business. And he said, he was surprised. He was like, I said, yeah. I said, why do we think this is good? It's like they think that these Will Smith movies are just like pretend. I said, this stuff, these robots are just, it's crazy how they're taking over. And I mentioned like Klaus Schwab to him and some other stuff. And you know what? He just started, like, it was like a well came out of him. He said, we're in the last days. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, I
I wish
didn't
I would have been the person behind you, because I said, yeah, Jennifer has that effect on people.
the people behind were like quiet. They were listening, but he just started boldly saying, we are in the final days and I hope people wake up. And I'm thinking, oh, now you're like Moses. It
Right, exactly.
was so
Parting the Red Sea on the turn the belt over here on the, this robot belt for
it
this
was
conveyor
amazing.
belt.
It was a great exchange. Like, I have the funniest exchanges since the whole pandemic started. Like, I walk into supermarkets, I'm like, "Hello, everybody! Dr. Fauci lied about everything," and they're like, "What? What just happened?" And that's it. I'll just like keep walking.
Oh man, I wish I lived closer to you. It was-
It's just fun. It's fun.
I'm the kind of person that would pick up the mic at Walmart or something, like where they page people, and I would probably say something like that over the PA system.
Somebody did that in Cali. Remember, like when people were just going crazy? Somebody in like Walmart started. I think he brought his intercom or something with. He started telling people about everything being a lie.
I have a video of one guy. He put it up to his ass and he farted into it.
Oh no!
Here, might as well play it. Since we're talking about it, hold on one second.
It's like a what do you call it? Like a variety show. Nothing's off the table, right?
Yeah, it's like, is this it? No. Dang it.
Oh,
I'll find it at some point and play it, but I just don't know what I labeled it as, because sometimes if I'm snarky, I'll label something, whatever. But I do want to play this clip. What happened to it?
You saw, Casey said she saw that.
Well, yeah, because I did post it in one of my videos, one of my show, like, because I do a daily show for about a half an hour called the Hogwash Report, and just touches on the news and stuff from the last 24 hours and that kind of thing. So I do like to throw some funny stuff in there. I mean, I know that's out of my norm, but I just, gosh, where did it go? Hold on. Having some technical difficulties, folks. One second.
That's okay. That's okay. Talk among yourselves.
Here we go.
What are they trying?
All right. This is why I like the X-Files. I don't remember what season this was from. It was a later season, like towards the end.
Okay.
But listen to some of, and this show was on Fox, so keep that in mind.
Oh.
So listen to what the actors are saying. Listen to the words they're saying.
Okay.
What are they trying to?
No sound.
Hold on.
Okay.
You didn't hear anything?
No, I didn't on my end.
Oh, you know why? Hold on.
Okay.
It's because I still had my share screen as
Oh.
with no sound.
All right.
See, folks, we're at the top of our game. All right, here we go.
What are they trying to do?
That's the missing piece. But it's not hard to imagine. A government hiding, hoarding alien technology for 70 years at the expense of human life and the future of the planet. Driven not only by corporate greed, but a darker objective. The takeover of America. And then the world itself, by any means necessary, however violent, or cruel, or efficient. By severe drought, brought on by weather wars, conducted secretly using aerial contaminants and high-altitude electromagnetic waves. In a state of perpetual war. To create problem, reaction, solution scenarios to distract, enrage, and enslave American citizens at home. With tools like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, which abridge the Constitution in the name of national security. The militarization of police forces in cities across the U.S., the building of prison camps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency with no stated purpose, the corporate takeover of food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, even the military and clandestine agendas to fatten, dull, sicken, and control a populace already consumed by consumerism. And I encourage you all to go shopping more. A government that taps your phone, collects your data, and monitors your whereabouts with impunity. A government preparing to use that data against you when it strikes. And the final takeover begins.
The takeover of America.
By a well-oiled and well-armed multinational group of elites that will cull, kill, and subjugate.
There you go.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know. Okay, my impression of the X-Files, I wasn't sure what it entailed. That gives me an idea that it's like the truther stuff mixed with the UFO.
Yes.
Yeah, stuff. Okay, that's what I thought it was all UFO stuff, but that's interesting that it had truther stuff in it. Fascinating. Wow. How many seasons of that show
That was like one of the last seasons. Like there's 10 or 11 seasons. I don't remember exactly. I'll have to look because I have all the DVDs upstairs.
Very
Because there's a couple seasons that sucked, pardon my French, sucked ass because
okay.
Mulder wasn't there. He's like the main character. He like
Great.
mysteriously was gone. He was having a problem with Fox for a little bit. But
Oh,
anyway,
that contract thing. Okay. I
so they
remember.
had another guy
Yeah.
come in
Oh,
and he
really?
wasn't as good. And the storyline wasn't as good.
Oh.
But if you ever get a chance, I'll send it to you, Jennifer, if you want.
Okay.
X-Files Fight the Future. They made 2 movies in addition to the show.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Where have I been?
The first one was amazing.
Mhm.
It was Fight the Future. It's just I just know you, and I know you would love that show, and I know you would love the movies. So
That's funny because, like, you know how you work in corporate settings. I was in big pharma, and a lot of the people watched X-Files, and they would come to work and talk about it. And like, what years would you say you were actively watching it? Like, around what time of?
it would have been when it came out. So like early 90s all the way through the early 2000s.
Gotcha.
And
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I have to say there's some seasons, like the first probably 6 seasons, maybe 7. First
Mhm.
6 for sure. I've watched at least 7 or 8 times.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I know
Fascinating.
the episodes backwards and forwards on the first few seasons, not the
Mhm.
later seasons, but it's just
Interesting.
because they don't just go into UFO stuff and
Okay.
conspiracies about UFOs and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They go into a lot of different subjects that like the government doesn't want you to know about, like or that they think they let you think that the government doesn't want you to know about, like mutants and things like that. People like genetic experiments and
Yeah.
just all kinds of random stuff. Like every episode was like, I couldn't wait for the next episode because it's like, what was
Wow.
going to be on at this time?
Interesting. Now, let me ask you this. Would you say that it aged well, as they say, aged well? If you
You
were
could
to
watch X-Files today
Mhm.
as if it were released today and not in the 90s.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay.
It's that well written. It's such a well written and well thought out show. There's a couple kind of quirky episodes I think they threw in because they wanted to give people a break, and they made them kind of a comedy kind of thing,
Oh, gotcha. It
like a
was too heavy.
spoofy kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you got to let off the gas a little bit because even with like what we do, like for me and you and like, you know, people that cover this hardcore stuff, I find it easy to lighten it and then get, heavy, light, a little bit, sometimes a few heavy things in a row. But I can sense the heaviness of the information. And it's like a hurdle to get past. Like once you can get past the heaviness of something and you could at least consider, and that's the thing, is like you don't have to believe it, but just I don't know, consider it and see where it might fit. And
Mhm.
it's fascinating.
Yeah, I literally keep those DVDs in the cabinet by the DVD player because some nights if there isn't anything interesting on a book I'm reading or YouTube or whatever, I
Mhm.
will literally put in one of those DVDs
Oh,
because I
wow.
love that show so much.
Oh, that's awesome to know that it aged well. That's what's really cool.
So back to the stuff that I've been avoiding.
Now,
For those of you that joined late, you might be in for an eye opener or surprise, but we're talking about the book that I referenced or that we referenced an episode or two ago, The Adam and Eve Story by Chan Thomas, that was classified by the CIA. So I'm going to read some more of these slides because I think it's important to take the idea or the concept of this book and talk about it. Like I said, I'm not trying to say it's true or not. I'm just saying I'm interested if something got classified and they didn't want us to know about it. That's all I'm saying.
mhm, mhm.
So according to Thomas, Jesus was considered a genius by the Naga people and spent 10 to 15 years learning to speak and write the local language. Thomas says Jesus' last words were actually spoken in the Naga language, and he translates them as, I am fainting, darkness is overcoming me. So these would have been the words he spoke on the cross, according to this gentleman here. So the redacted versions of the book were previously available, but the fully revealed edition was recently declassified by the CIA, and that was, like I said, done under the Trump administration. I think it was 2018 or 2019, somewhere in there.
Okay, so that's when it was
Declassified.
Okay, gotcha. When was it written? Is there a year?
65, I think.
1965?
Somewhere in that time frame. I'll have to look again to make sure, but
okay.
it was declassified almost exactly 50 years later. So, and I'm 56, so that would make sense if it was like in the mid 60s.
Okay.
Don't be making fun of my age, people.
I'm right there too. So, hey, you guys, don't be mean to older people.
Get off the grass.
I'm letting gray come into my hair. I'm gonna be
kids,
like,
get out of my yard.
I'm gonna be like a hippie grandma with like long gray braids.
Beard.
Beard, no beard.
It sounded like you said beard at first.
Yeah, please don't let a beard come in.
You'd be like an Italian woman or something, an old Italian woman. And I could say that because I knew a lot of old Italian women and a lot of old Greek women, and some of them have beards.
Joke about that. They joke about it. I mean, I'm from Philly. Like, I know, we know, Danny. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It just happens. That's just the way it is.
Thing,
it's genetics.
Black women are hairy too, though. Like, it's a thing.
We could do a show on that. We'll do a show on hairiness or something. And then slide into Bigfoot or something.
A little bit of Eddie Murphy, Goody Goo Goo. Does anybody know that?
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's when I was a kid. That was like one of my favorite stand-up. I had that thing on tape, like a cassette tape, and I played it everywhere I went.
Oh my God! I know John. John is now officially so cool. He knows the Goony Goo Goo reference. I literally just heard somebody talk about Goony Goo Goo like a day ago.
Because he's talking about like the woman being a Bigfoot,
That's why I thought it would fit. It came to my mind. I'm like Goony Goo Goo.
Oh my God, talking about that whole delirious or whatever that was, that could be a whole show in itself.
Oh my gosh, that's when comedy was funny and offensive.
Yes, he had Richard Pryor and those guys.
Like equal opportunity offenders, right?
That's right. People made fun of themselves and made fun of each other, and it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, that's when things were a little different. Of course, because they would have if Biden was the president back then. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if comedians could really be comedians with the Biden and Kamala? Oh my God.
Now you just have people like me that have all the memes about them. And,
I know, but I'm saying like mainstream comedy, like they are missing out on just comic gold with those two. But we know why. But it's just comedy is dead. I'm sorry.
Hey, Buckaroo. All right, continuing on, because I'm going to make Jennifer chuckle snort here in a minute.
Oh no, I'm putting my water down now.
At least you don't have your beaker today.
I don't want to. Yeah, I know the beaker. I didn't fill it up today.
Let's see. In another section of the book, Thomas also claims that Jesus was abducted by aliens on Easter Sunday. I think I'm going to rephrase that a little bit because that's where people kind of get glossy-eyed and they start attacking. It's like when you say abducted by aliens.
Did you see me do like the guy that has the meme like
right? Yeah, like the kid looking up like the.
What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, exactly. Beings not of this earth. Let's put it like that. On Easter Sunday, it says 2 angels came to earth in their space vehicle to take care of the aftermath of Jesus's crucifixion. It then goes on to say that the Genesis story is actually a parable about the collapse of a previous civilization and an extinction event before Noah's flood. I'm going to pause there for a second because the last couple of days, thanks to Jennifer and I've been down this rabbit hole. One of the things, this other rabbit hole I've kind of gone down, talks about the idea that there astronomically speaking, like every 7,000 years, there's like a cataclysm, like some kind of a cataclysmic event kind of thing, and it's wiped out previous cultures, like several previous cultures in the past.
And resets,
Like,
right? Several resets.
yes, exactly.
That's what I've heard, you know.
So that's, I think, what they're referring to, or the author is referring to here.
Okay.
Thomas begins the book with dedications to several U.S. generals who are famous among conspiracy theorists for their covert work during the Cold War. And this is what I was referring to earlier, that not only did this gentleman write it who had some of this knowledge, but he dedicated the book to these generals, and specifically not like to his wife or to his girlfriend or to whoever. It was to these generals. According to the Daily Star, the name The Adam and Eve Story comes from Thomas's view that the book of Genesis is really a parable. We just talked about that. He mentions U.S. Air Force General Curtis LeMay, U.S. Air Force General Harold Grant, and the Admiral Rufus Taylor. I don't hear that name much anymore. Rufus.
True.
All of whom are except for in a dog, all of whom were extremely high up in the U.S. military. And this is, I think, from the book itself. He was especially remembered through tradition because he was a genius. Students, this is talking about Jesus, students were taught rigorous courses from mathematics to medicine, languages, what we call ESP, out-of-body travel, metaphysics as a science, and natural healing. The course was so rigorous that it usually took the lifetime of a normal person to graduate from the temple. Students had to learn Naga. Graduates were called Son of God, where have we heard that phrase before, in the book of Enoch and other areas. It's interesting that Jesus never referred to himself as Son of God, always Son of Man. It looks as if we must conclude that these angels came to earth in their space vehicle to take care of the aftermath of Jesus' crucifixion. Holy cow. Let's say, oh my gosh. I'm going to take a breath, John. Okay.
It's tongue twisty. I get it.
Let's say that their space vehicle was an Ezekiel's wheel. And we've talked about that recently. And Jennifer, I think we were trying to look for like the angel things, the angel wheels or whatever those things were with the eyes and everything.
I just used one.
I know you did. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, little snippet. Yeah. Okay. Yep. The wheel.
So any dissenters, only alternative to this is name calling. Hold on, let's see what this says next here. Thomas writes in his introduction to all of those who ridiculed, it's not even a word, rediculted. Is that a word? Rediculted?
Might be. Ridiculed.
Scorned and laughed, relegating me to the nut house and even firing me. For how else would I have been so driven to purpose or to pursue, solve, find, and derive the truth I owe them? Thomas was reportedly part of a team employed by an aerospace firm connected to the U.S. Air Force to research UFOs. Thomas was a contemporary of Dr. Robert Wood, who, if you have seen any stuff involving this, you'll know who Dr. Robert Wood is, who has since gone on to become a prominent expert on UFOs with MUFON, and which is the Mutual UFO Network. In an article published in 2007, Wood names Thomas as one of his most important UFO researchers. That's the author of the book, Adam and Eve. He describes the author as an exceptional, innovative man who claimed to be in contact with ETs. Dr. Wood confesses, however, he almost fired Thomas for his eccentric behavior, but described him as a total out-of-the-box thinker.
Interesting. Now, can I just say something about?
Jump in, because this is going to be another article from another whatever newspaper or whatever.
What I find fascinating, John, is that his name is Thomas, and from what I'm recalling, Thomas was one of the only apostles that went over to India. He was the one that went to India to proselytize and bring the gospel to that part of the world. So I find that interesting that his name is Thomas, and then he's talking about India. And then India being one of the Now, don't take offense, any people from India, but we have to be real when we look at the Indian temples and the artifacts and things like that, and the religion. When you look at Buddha sitting in a lotus, and then you see snakes, you see serpents, you see things like that. So whenever you see, they're called the serpentine cultures. So whenever snakes are involved, it has something to do with wisdom and knowledge and gnosis. So, that's why we have like the two snakes of the Caduceus and all of that stuff. And then the snake coming out of the headdress of the Egyptians and Babylonians. So snakes represent knowledge and that kind of like thing. So I would just like, I know like that when I do my scholarship, the one thing I'm looking at with any, like, is if it's an account that is depicting Jesus Christ, the one thing that I like personally want to see if they're going to talk about is the bodily resurrection, like not a spiritual resurrection or something happened to the body. If they're trying to imply like maybe UFOs took the body, UFOs meaning what, alien life, extraterrestrial. So then the crucifixion and the resurrection is that hinges, like everything hinges on that. So then I know that that's attacked the most, the resurrection, bodily death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So, and also the virgin birth, the virgin, conception and birth of Jesus. So these are the two things that are attacked the most. And then it's just like, okay, so what are you really saying? So that's interesting. I would love to know like what is said about the divinity of Jesus and his claim that he is the Son of God. Like, and then sons of God, I know the angels were called like sons of God when they came before the throne, the sons of God. And, so those are like points of contention with the truth of like who Jesus is. So that's interesting. Only because I know that the UFO deception thing, like because the Nephilim and the cosmology of the Bible, meaning this global thing that Copernicus and that gang wanted us to think of the world and the cosmology in a certain way. Whereas now I don't believe in NASA. I don't believe anything that NASA has put out. Okay, anything. Everything is like what? It's a rendering, a computerized whatever. They don't have actual photography, nothing that can back up what they're spewing, and they attack anybody who wants to even say that the world is a different, whatever. I won't say it, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, David Carrico goes into it. He says he biblically stands on the fact that the earth is not round, is not a sphere.
It is not.
And
it can't be like
he goes, that's a whole nother show he does.
We should do that because it's like when you start thinking, you're like, okay, when you fly and travel a lot, that's when I knew something was wrong with all my international traveling, especially when I go to places like China. So I have
some fancy outfits in some of those pictures.
Yeah, like it's like, just such a.
They get like a black and white stripe, something going on, and then.
Oh yeah, it's always like something crazy, right?
Then you had your like Sahara outfit, like in Egypt or whatever, like that.
Yeah, what's funny? I was talking about black and white like tiles on some floor, and then I was wearing black and white. I was like, oh my god, they're probably going to say I'm part of the Illuminati or something. But yeah, but that's the thing about like the aspect of what NASA has put forth. And I'm so glad that I looked into Jack Parsons and the connection to Aleister Crowley, as well as L. Ron Hubbard. And I think I heard David Carrico say this, that NASA, they couldn't do anything in terms of these ballistic missiles, all this stuff that they were trying to do. They couldn't do it, but Jack Parson, he could make things happen because he would go out to the desert with crazy ass L. Ron Hubbard, and they were ingesting cakes of light. If you don't know about cakes of light, that'll keep you up at night. But
They were big on the ether too, like the power of the ether.
oh yeah, ether, and they're like they're doing these Babylon working out in the desert near studio. I'm about to say Studio 54 area. Yeah, there too, Studio 54 area 52. And so if they were doing sex magic rituals to make that stuff happen in terms of rockets, then I know that there's an extra, like that extraterrestrial stuff. I believe, now tell me what you think, John. I believe those are demonic. That's like a demonic realm, the aliens, like it's interchangeable. What do you think?
Yeah, to me, that could be a whole show by itself. And there's so many opinions on that. And
Right.
there's a lot of them. I kind of, depending on what show I'm watching, I kind of lean one way or the other. And
Okay.
again, this goes back to the voice in my head with all my churchianity friends, that it's like, there's no question. It's demonic. They're demons. Like they're interdimensional, like they're demonic entities. So I'm going to use that segue to tie into what Karen said here.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Because it is well documented in history a number of times that there have been flying vehicles. People or other entities have been flying around in vehicles of one kind or another. Some of them make thundering, roaring noises that blast fire. So to me, like my God wouldn't have to fly around in a vehicle, first of all.
True.
So these would have to be either fallen angels. They would have to, and in my God's universe, and again, I'm just saying this as a new Christian, in my God's universe, and I feel this in my heart. The universe is, who knows how big the universe is? I mean, it's an unlimited, massive possibility. So why can't there be other life forms, not just human beings in the universe, that God created? I mean, just because we have an account here and we have a Bible, we've had things written down and God's talked to people and prophets and, people have written things down and kept track of their accounts. Why couldn't God have done that on other worlds or in other parts or corners of the universe? To me, like God's being all powerful, anything's possible. I guess that's my mindset. Anything's possible.
Gotcha.
So it could be other intelligent life from other planets or other realms. I'll use that word from now on, realms. I'm not gonna say planets. We'll use realms.
Because that's the thing with the whole cosmology thing is like once I accepted that the world was not a globe, then that took the universe out of like the realm of what I thought of it. Like when you say like life on other planets, then it's like planets become something different now. Like I had to like, okay, what are planets now? Because if this Earth realm is I look at it as a cosmic, like it's a clock. It's like a clock, face. It's moving and it's precise. But then planets and the stuff that up there, if I think of the firmament and I look at it as a like a hard whatever material, whatever it's made out of, like I've heard different things like crystalline or whatever, and
That's crazy. He does.
Sorry.
Then how, like I'm just saying that would be interesting to get into. You and I'd like to really jump into that part.
Yeah, to me, even if it was, because a lot of our history that we know of anyway, that has been documented and public, I guess is the word I want to use. There's almost every culture. I'll use, since we were talking about India, I'm going to use Indian culture specifically right now. Because I have a hard time discrediting or invalidating like a culture or religions that predate Christianity that have been well established. You know, it's like, who's to say that what was going on in their society was any more different than what's happening now, or you know, like God treats everybody the same. Like, so the commonalities to me, like, in like, we'll use, since Karen brought that up, in the Vedas, they talk about specifically the Vimanas, these flying vehicles that the gods used to fly around in and others used to fly around in. And then you have also in Persia, Aladdin's magic carpet, or the idea of the flying carpet, the flying vehicle, the flying whatever. And so there's all these beings, whether they're fallen angels, whether they're demons, whether they're from other worlds, whatever. The fact is, they existed in some shape or form, and people documented that. So we know that to be a fact. That, and we have paintings, ancient paintings that have depictions of people in bubbles or ships with flames coming out the back and flying around in the sky. So
those are cool. Like the ones they found down in Mexico. Remember, it looks like they're motorcycles flying.
Yes, I think we showed that on the.
Yeah, that one I love. Like that was really.
That was the king. The king is on his tomb, on his sarcophagus that was on the surface.
I got you. And then the like you said, the Vedic texts with the various like craft, and also like
they talk about battles. They talk about them battling in the sky, like they're fighting each other. It almost sounds like a nuclear war, like they're shooting missiles and stuff at each other, and there's explosions, and what they're describing is like an all-out aerial battle. So we're these good angels versus the bad angels, like the fallen ones versus the blah blah blah, and
that's interesting.
Which also
the war
leads
in
down,
heaven. Like, you know, they talk about the war of the Titans, the war in heaven. Like some people say that literally was happening. Like everything. Can you imagine like seeing all that stuff happening in the sky? Like that literally was happening. So the clash of the Titans kind of thing. And then also another thing, John, that's interesting, that with what you're saying is that the Nazis, and I would love to do that, like cover what the Nazis were tapped into, and then the whole connection to Antarctica, and how, you know, they have, like, what did they say? They reverse engineered some craft, whatever. So yeah, this is interesting, the craft.
Well, I have schematics of those actual craft. Let's see. It shows on Antarctica.
This is like coast to coast. We're getting
there. Exactly.
This is coast to coast. Right. Midwest to coast.
So I think there was like 7 or 8 total different designs, and they held a different amount of people or equipment and had different munitions, different types of munitions on them. Like this one was the Haunebu 1. I can't read that, but it goes into the gross weight. It goes into every little detail about the description of this craft. And here it is. This is the translated version here.
Oh, okay.
So there is the Haunebu 1, and let's see, circular knife aircraft, 25 meters in diameter, so 75 feet in diameter. Mag field impulsor was the control. Speed 17,000 miles an hour. Range 18 hours. Armament 2 by 8 KSK in turrets and 4 by MK 108 rigid forward. External armor, double victories. Crew 8 men. So it goes on, and they describe these. Here's another one. This is the Type 2. And like like I said, they go on.
Fascinating.
Like there's literal. This is Type 4. And again, these are all different sizes. They all have different capabilities.
Wow.
So some of these might look familiar to some of the more famous UFO pictures that have been taken in the past. And but to me, there's something about what happened, because almost every culture, I'm not going to say every culture, but almost every ancient culture has some kind of an account of a war in heaven, and a war of gods, or a war. I mean, the Romans, the Greeks, the Indian, the Hindu, Chinese. I'm not sure about the Japanese, Sumerian. Always there's some kind of war in heaven, or in the heavens, as we come to know in the Bible. There's like the first heaven, second heaven, third heaven. So I'm wondering if the heavens plural means the different layers of heaven, like these battles took place in different aspects of heaven, or different, because they always refer to either literal or figurative, like literal meaning like literally the sky is heaven. Like, so it happened in the sky, that's heaven. Or in some cases
in a second heaven, like, where the angels do have access, the ones that, could still access part of it, that aren't in the abyss, I guess. So
think about the technology they would have being alive for as long as they've been around. And
oh gosh, yes. Like,
to me, and again, I go back to Antarctica again, and I go back to the Hollow Earth and the Aryan race, the people, these beings, or these entities that Admiral Byrd encountered, are a perfect description of even what people would call today, like the Pleiadians or whatever, like that cosmic race, Pleiadians. Is that how you pronounce it?
They've been talking about the Pleiadians and any race of people that would come from that whatever group of some of the Hindu years in the
Karen says, I studied some of the Hindu religion for 8 years of my life, and the old Indian religious movies show you the great wars between the gods, and their weapons. Weaponry was massive.
Yeah, there you are. So like that's another maybe genetic thing. Like, we've heard these things and we've been told that it's mythology, but it's something to it, because so many cultures have an account, and I can justify it in my understanding that the Babel, the tower, and then the confusion and dispersion of people was because of how great they were becoming to get so close to knowledge that was too much for people to have. But
that's what's missing. That's a perfect point. I'm glad you brought that up. The continuity of knowledge, or the continuity of events. It seems like you said, there's like an ebb and flow, and that's why I believe personally, just from things I've seen over the last couple decades, that there has to have been more than one advanced culture on our planet, and our planet has to be. It's almost like, the scientists, the wizards and warlocks, whatever you want to call them, say the Earth is however many billion years old, and who's to say in that time, every 10,000 years, there seems to be a society that falls, and then another one rises, another one falls. And I mean, there's enough evidence, even from our, whatever this last society would have been, to show that they were an advanced society all over the world in different areas.
Well, right. And that's why the mud flood people really intrigued me, is that like I said, I wasn't ready to get into that mud flood stuff. I could tell I needed a little more preparation, like I said. But the thing about what they were saying that was compelling, and what you're saying, is that we have come to believe that anything that predates our modern so-called history is prehistoric. And they do the conditioning from the time you're younger, because they teach you about cavemen, and they're like, hey, with their big club, they're beating women, dragging them to their cave. It's like, what? So you think of Flintstones, they're do-do-do-do-do, and they're like walking the car with their feet. They're using their feet. Like, if that isn't the biggest, come on now, that's like come on, man.
Land of the Lost.
To disrespect ancient society
Chaka.
by making them sound like they're the Flintstones. And so, it's like, but then you have to look at who's behind it. And they pretty much put the mark on it, because I showed some pictures and I was shocked, because I would watch the Flintstones with my cousins and stuff. But what did the Flintstones do? They went to their lodge meetings. They went to their secret society of the buffalo,
Yeah, they didn't say Masonic Lodge, but they implied Masonic Lodge.
and it's like, wow, okay, so you get to see that there is something very tinfoily about keeping us in this ignorant state of thinking that ancient peoples were behind technologically and intellectually. How in the world that these architectural structures, and that's where a lot of people are not ready for that part, because the stones will cry out if they have to. The stones tell a story. And I look at the stones as, and the stonemasons, why are they so obsessed with stones, right? It's because there's something powerful about stones and architecture, because you cannot argue. You can't argue against it. And there's no proof that anybody in our modern times can build things like, you could name something in Ohio. I'm sure you could find, I don't even have to know about Columbus, Ohio, to know that you probably have tons of architecture that looks like it's over in Greece and in Rome. You probably have libraries that have columns of Corinthian, whatever, Ionic, and all this stuff. All across the world realm is the same architecture. They could play around with the names. Oh, this is Greek, this is Roman. It's all Babylonian. It's all the same stuff. Egyptian, Babylonian, all the same empire. That's what's really a trip to me. It's like, if you look at the world realm and you look at what group was it? Like, this was all their empire. Everything from Egypt to Babylon, all of it. So that's why, gosh, I'm about to get off on a tangent. That's why Gilgamesh in his chamber, he had gold artifacts from Egypt in there. And I'm thinking, okay, this is Gilgamesh. What is he doing with all this Egyptian stuff? Why do we have stuff
and carrying around a lion?
Exactly. And then why do we have Egyptian stuff at the the big canyon, the Grand Canyon? Why is that off limits for us to go explore? And they found Egyptian stuff there. So then, like, that goes to show, like, what you're saying, John. It's like, are you really serious to think that, like, people think that these societies were behind us? We can't even build this stuff anymore, and we have all this technology.
And they're finding pyramids all over the place now with the use of satellites and stuff like that.
Yes,
especially like in South America and North America. South America especially. I mean, think about how quickly nature takes over an area. Like, even like if a house gets abandoned for 30 years or 40 years or something like that, you would never know it was there unless you knew it was there, because nature has just taken it over.
Exactly.
They've found, oh my gosh, I can't remember where it's at, but they found one of the, they're still there studying it now. They found an amazing pyramid in South America, just out in the middle of nowhere,
Really,
not by a normal Mayan cultural center. And because that's how, like, the mainstream anthropologists want to connect things to an Egyptian pyramid. It like a normal,
more like that, not a step, like, when they find those Aztecs, they're stepped. Was it like that?
This from my understanding, I'll have to look again. This is more like a traditional pyramid in Egypt. But think about it, everything from that time period, and this is why I go back to like a global advanced civilization, because why would everybody across the globe at the same time, or roughly the same era, come up with the idea of pyramids? Like why would you build a building shaped like a pyramid?
Exactly.
And because like if you move on, like move into the next era,
Mhm.
why don't we have a fascination with pyramids? Why don't we build pyramids all over the globe? There had to be a reason why pyramids were built.
Right.
And I don't know where they started, if they started in Egypt or whatever, because they are literally found all over the world in some form or another from that same time period.
Yep.
So somebody or something or a group of somebodies had to have that influence across the globe.
And why? Because we think that they were like when I went to the great like pyramids in Giza and went inside the Cheops, inside like down deep, like I could have died. I was so like I'm like I have like claustrophobia, John, and can you imagine like I felt pressure because I had a young tour guide and then my daughter's like a millennial. So I was like, I can't be like an old fuddy dud. I have to go climbing in these. So I'm climbing on down into these pyramids. I mean, it was just to think of it. I shudder at the thought that I did that from peer pressure. I went inside pyramids and I almost passed out at one pyramid. I was like, look, I am not going in another pyramid. It was hot as Hades and I became so like dehydrated,
Yes.
But inside the pyramids, the thing is like, why did they have these cavernous, like, all kinds of tunnels? We were all in these deep recesses of all of this architecture there.
Were you at the Giza Plateau? Were you at the
The
main
Giza Plateau, went into the three, went into the sun boat, where they have the sun boat and all of that stuff. So like some of the places we went in, we'd have to wear like special special shoes to like walk around. And so the thing is like I thought that a lot of these were chambers for burial, but it couldn't have been that. And I know a lot of people, like especially Karen, she probably has a lot of opinions on why. Because, like you said, John, they have pyramids not just in Giza, not just like right there in Cairo, but below. That's another thing that's hidden from most of us is that in Sudan, there are tons of pyramids, more so than in Cairo and Luxor and all of these other places. Why?
and look at the function. Well, nobody really knows the function, but in some of those passages, especially in the Great Pyramid, like they're at specific angles, they go to specific places, and then they go to like they seemingly end, and then you end up finding another passage that goes to another, and they're plain. Like there's like no hieroglyphs, there's no carving, there's no in some of these areas, like they're not as ornate as you would find like in the Temple of Karnak or whatever. Like, and so
Right.
you would think that if you're going to have a burial chamber,
Mhm.
and because some of these areas are massive,
Yeah.
and but just plain, like just the walls are smooth and the ceiling's smooth, and
Mhm. Mhm.
there is something to be said about that whole the whole idea of what their actual function was, because where the actual burial chamber is, the actual burial chamber in some of the pyramids, not necessarily the Great Pyramids, were relatively close to the surface of the ground. Like there wasn't I don't remember how deep Tut's tomb was, but I don't remember it being that deep. Like they didn't have to go down too far.
Oh, and by the way, the cat is, you know how she does her thing, Josephine. When I was over there, by the way, John and everybody, when I was in Cairo, the day that we were going through, like we were going to Memphis, like, and Memphis has all this stuff too. And isn't it funny, like here here in Turtle Island, on Turtle Island, we have places that are similar. Like we have Memphis, So Memphis had like a museum. I think it was either Memphis or we were in what is it? Something, I'm forgetting the name. Socorro. They had just discovered a whole pyramid with buried mummies of cats. And they said it was hundreds of cats mummified. And I was like, what? The day that we are like here, they found this, like it was, they hadn't seen this in like, all this time. And they uncovered all of these mummified cats. Isn't that fascinating?
I mean, again, that could be a whole nother show. Just the whole mummification thing and the deification of cats, or the way the cats were portrayed in the afterlife, or as heralds of the afterlife kind of thing with ancient Egyptian culture. Karen brought this point up, and this is something to consider. She says, but remember, they say the whole world was connected, or Pangea, I think is what they called it, before the flood. So that could make things more accessible around the globe.
Yeah.
Or I use that word globe again. Around the realm.
That's a good point. And it's hard, to stop saying globe. I know, John.
And there literally are pyramids, probably periods too, literally being found in the New World, as they call it, like in North America, South America. There, look at the pyramids in Antarctica.
Yes, that's another thing. And they are shaped like what you're saying, like more, not the step pyramids that you see in the Aztecs, but they're smooth like that too. So
something was up about that time period. Something was up. And conveniently, that, like I said, that continuity of thought, or that continuity of knowledge always seems to break at the right time, so you can move on, start a new agenda, start a new whatever.
And then another thing, what do you think about like at least the ones in Giza are lined up with Orion? So they have the alignment of the stars. And weren't you the one talking about the whole CERN thing and how the portals,
ley lines and things like that?
So they're all lined up with Giza. Especially, I think Giza is the main portal. And I want to talk about that because that's where I've been, John, in that particular rabbit hole about Giza, the portals, and then Nimrod. Since you're there,
before I'm going to stop you real quick because I know where you're going.
Reel me in. I'm not going to go too far.
No, I don't care if you go too far. That's what I love about you. You can go as far as you want.
Julie's here. What happened?
Oh, yeah, she is.
An emoji. She's like, what? Hey, Julie.
So let's go back to the idea of Mr. Tesla, and the ether, and energy from the cosmos, as it were, or energy from an alternate dimension, or energy, any kind of energy. We'll just use the ether, for example, because that seems to be a common thing. And we go back to that whole concept of the 1800s again, because that whole, with Houdini and everybody, obsessed with the ether and
Yes.
So one speculation has been that the Great Pyramids, anyway, I'm not sure all pyramids, but the Great Pyramids anyway, in the Giza Plateau there, the way they're designed, and with the shafts as deep and as angled as they are in these large chambers, it's believed that they may have been filled with salt water in some of these lower chambers. And they were used to generate power, like they were power plants. And because the pyramids then looked different than they do now, they actually had a coating on them. You were not able to see the actual stones of the pyramids. They had almost like stucco, like if you were to think of a white stucco house, but smooth, like they had smoothed out sides on these pyramids. And some say they had crystal peaks on them. I don't know, obviously, if that's true or not. But the idea was that somehow these were their alignment and their position on the planet allowed them to become power plants. Like they were, I don't know what the exact, how they did it, but the idea was somehow they were able to use salt water and like fusion or something, some kind of fusion with the sun and these crystals and the stuff. Like they were so they're able to generate this power, and they were able to transmit it wirelessly, as Tesla speculated that you could do, because some of the ancient hieroglyphs, to me, clearly show them holding a light bulb, like elongated light bulb. Let me see if I can find it here.
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I hope you find that. That's fascinating.
Let's see here.
A light bulb.
And it looks like it has a cord, like it's plugged into the wall.
Serious? Oh boy. Oh boy. What I love is like, yeah, that's the thing I'm saying. Like the stones, if you look at the Egyptian just stones, and you see these pictures and you see these reliefs and stuff, can't argue that some. Oh yes, yeah. Oh boy.
If you look at this image on the right here, let me see if I can make that bigger. Of course not.
That's crazy.
Here,
Yep.
let me do this. Open.
And then look at the height, John, is as compared to the other people. Like some of them are definitely some giant types.
And this is where I was going with this too. And we were talking about this previously. Like, why would you build all these megalithic structures if they weren't easy for you to build? Why would you all across the globe? Why, if it was so hard to build, why would you build them?
Exactly.
And
they
to me,
had to have been put up at the same, like you said, the same time. Think about that, everybody. Like John said, this is all around the same time frame, and you know how long it takes for them to fix the freaking highway. If you're trying to get there every day, it takes a freaking year for them to do something on the highway. So we're supposed to believe they popped up all these buildings like it was so hard for them. Like, come on, please.
Yeah, and like there's just this massive workforce across the planet that was able to do this. You know,
that's another thing.
So literally everybody would have to be a slave to get this accomplished.
Because you don't have the population. That's another thing for anybody who tries to debunk this mud flood stuff. What was the population of the earth? How did everybody have the skills to do all of this stuff? Come on. And then the transportation is the biggest problem, because that was horse and buggy stuff, 1800s and 17, if you want to say hundreds. There were no big trucks and cranes and things that you need.
But looks like they had some big mother truckers though.
That's the only way you can do it, my friend. Look at that hybrid. That's a chimera that could go into the quarry and take the rock out and just throw it. He could throw it right in place and build a pyramid.
We already know that there's plenty of accounts of giants, at least a race of giants across the globe. Almost every culture
and it
has a history of giants of some sort.
And
I wanted, like, this photo is, I've always remembered this image of this particular hieroglyph, because, and then when I started following Tesla and researching Tesla and stuff, I came back to this because the whole idea of the pyramids being like a wireless power emitter kind of thing. This, to me, again, I could be totally off base, and others as well, clearly looks like a light bulb with a filament that is on a resistor here, or whatever, just sitting on like a, and you can see clearly at the end here, it's got like a cord or a cable or whatever that comes out the back and goes into like this, wherever it goes over here. What is it plugged into? What, I mean, why would you draw something like that? Why would you?
Exactly.
And to me, like, if you've ever seen like a transformer or seen any of like Tesla's like coils,
right,
I immediately think of these right here.
True.
Like these resistors. Like,
yeah.
So you so
that,
to me, I've always been fascinated by this image. Always been
amazing.
fascinated.
I forgot about that image. And you know, Tesla definitely tapped into, I mean, some people say that he definitely tapped into knowledge from the other realm. He got this knowledge, and he didn't expect it to be used the way it, was, and definitely that interfacing and communicating with the spiritual world, that these spirits are highly intelligent. So they're going to, be able to transmit scientific knowledge to humans. And we've heard of the names, like at least of one of those angels, Azazel, who taught a lot of things. And then, you know what? I was just looking at the Book of the Bee, and it's like there's a whole list of different angelic entities that taught different things. They had all these different things that they taught to mankind.
Mhm.
Some
Yeah,
were like
absolutely.
architecture, some taught architecture and things like that, and music, like how to make musical instruments and all these things. So, whoa.
Can you imagine being one of those gods? Every time you wipe out a civilization, oh man, we got to teach these new guys again. Or like, we got to roll up and we got to start school all over again. Maybe these guys will be better this time, maybe, but literally there's accounts. And again, the sky, heaven, however you want to transpose those words. Some people were literal, some people were figurative about it.
Mhm.
Always beings, whether they were spiritual beings from other worlds, heavenly beings, whatever, they always came from the sky. The ones that brought knowledge, the ones that brought, whatever, mathematics, whatever field you're talking about. So whether they're angels, whether they're fallen angels, whatever they are, they always came from the sky, the heavens, in
Mhm.
some cases.
Mhm.
Let's see. Kieran says, I saw an old photo with a blimp, went to the top of the Empire State Building, and the tip of the blimp touched the steeple to get
Oh,
energy.
I
That
would
was
love
actually,
that.
that was one of the concepts that Tesla had, that he, in the major metropolitan areas, he wanted the tallest buildings to have these Tesla coils, or the ability to generate this energy,
Mhm.
whether you were plugging into it or, like she said, touching it. And
Mhm.
there's just so much to that concept that it helps explain some of the things that may have transpired 10,000 years ago, or however long it was.
Mhm.
Maybe they had energy, maybe they had power of some kind. They were able to power vehicles or power machinery or power devices that
Mhm.
were able to do the work or the tasks that they needed to get done.
Mhm.
And they were able to travel, they were able to communicate. And
Yeah.
going back to the whole Antarctica thing,
Mhm.
I've touched on this before, and other people have touched on this before, and I think Steve Quayle has touched on this many times, is the idea of an inter realm, or an like a tram system, like a railway system, like tunnels that go around our world.
Right.
And in his case, or in like Admiral Byrd's case, it was like a rail kind of thing, like a hyper rail
Okay.
that you were able to travel all over.
Mhm.
Again, the whole hollow earth thing.
Right. That makes
Um,
sense. That really does. Yeah.
so what if
Well,
those were created at the time of Antarctica having tropical
right.
foliage and that kind of stuff, and
Exactly.
the
And that,
fallen ones or anybody else created this way to travel around the world? And so you wonder, they didn't have to necessarily fly everywhere. They could have just traveled underground.
true. Like it's a lot of ways that they could, get around, transportation being key. And like, have you seen pictures, John, or anybody? Like, I know you guys have seen those pictures where they're like taken from the 1800s, but you see people riding around on electrical scooters of some sort, or
Yes. Yep.
and then you see, I swear, I think I saw this. You know how you hear something so much, you're like, I think I saw that. I think I remember it too. What is that called? Somebody knows the term for that, when you really think you never saw it, but you really think you did. But I think I saw a photograph from the 1800s, and it was like a woman or two with a cell phone. Does anybody
Yes.
remember that? Or am I tripping? Do I need a vacation? And then Gilgamesh, old Gil, when you
Oh,
look at
Gil.
all the Babylonian stuff and old Gil here, What is he wearing? Look at that. Gil has, can you see it, my friend, my brother? Gil is wearing an Apple Watch. Why is he wearing an Apple Watch?
Oh no, that was the sundial watch that was in style at the time.
What was he doing with this watch? All the Babylonians on their reliefs, they have this watch that has like a daisy pattern. Have you ever like noticed that, John?
Yes, I'm still fascinated by the fact that Gilgamesh was holding an adult lion under his arm.
And smacking it. I'm going to say he's abusive. I think he smacked the lion because he has what? He has a thing in his hand, a smacker. And those lions are regular size lions. Like, that's crazy.
Here's one of the pictures that you're referring to.
Oh my God, what year is that?
I don't remember what year it was, but I want to say it was like 30s
That's
or 40s.
crazy. Even if it's like the 60s, that's crazy. What is she holding up to her? Now, I know somebody like Snopes will say, no, that's not a phone.
Good old Snopes.
What would Snopes say that was? They would be like, that's a cigarette case, and she was just getting a cigarette and lighting it.
Well, this is a series of photos of the same woman, so you could see that she's here with this. Here's a close up, and it holding it in her hand. So if it's a cigarette case, why would she have it up to her ear? And she's holding it like how a modern person would hold their cell phone.
Exactly. Like that looks just like, it looks like a brick, like the original Motorola that we all had, right? But
yeah, right.
they hadn't had Apple phones yet, right? When that picture was taken. But that's crazy. And then the scooter where you see the woman and she has like the clothing from the whatever year, and she's like riding around on a engine, like what is it? Motorized, I'll say scooter at least. And then the moving sidewalks. Did you guys see that during some of the world fairs? And they're like on moving sidewalks. Oh my God. That's somebody from a modern era in an old picture.
Yeah, this is the one I remember the most whenever I think of like time travel pictures or anything like that. Because he looks like a kind of a bohemian hippie kind of guy. In an area where everybody wore top hats and stuff like that, and looks like he's wearing a t-shirt, and these kind of cool glasses, and
that's cool. And that's happened with a lot of pictures. Like, have you seen the one with Jay-Z from like the whatever?
Yes.
It's like, wait a minute, that's creepy. That looks totally like Jay-Z.
Well, there's one of my least favorite people, but I might as well show this one.
Uh-oh.
I shouldn't say she's one of my least favorite people. She's a puppet. She's a puppet. So
travel, Greta. You know what? I'm having a different feeling about Greta. I'm not as like, how dare you, Greta? I feel bad for Greta. She's being used.
Yes, and I feel exactly the same way. But shame on her parents because
definitely, how dare you?
But if Disney ever made a movie about her,
I love that. Oh gosh, Disney is really in the doghouse, aren't they? Oh gosh.
Yeah. Since I got everybody's attention now, we're gonna go back to this whole controversial thing we were talking about earlier. And let's see here. What does Karen say? There's a lot of celebrities that show you pictures of them in the past so that sure knows leaves the question of cloning. Yeah, I have a lot of pictures of like Tom Hanks and other people that literally look like they could have had clones, like Johnny Depp and those guys back from the early 1900s or late 1800s, that kind of thing. So,
that's interesting.
I'm going to ask you this. Do you have a whiteboard behind you?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I saw one, but I'm like, If it's Jennifer, it's probably is a whiteboard. So
Yes,
there you go.
I have it behind me. I had meant to move that. It's in the
She's got her.
it's in the is Josephine still back? Oh yeah, she's back there too.
Oh, it's fine. You can leave the whiteboards actually adds to it. I like that.
No, you're
right.
right. It is.
So this one's from the Daily Star, not the Daily Mail or whatever. But this goes back to the book Adam and Eve by Chad Thomas or whatever his name was. I already forgot his name, but the guy that worked for the government that wrote this book that was classified immediately by the CIA. So I'm going to read some of these slides because some of these are interesting, to say the least. Oh, and if you don't know, another rabbit hole, if you want to, because it kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier. Google or search St. Ignatius files. And you'll find that in the St. Ignatius files, like St. Ignatius literally talks about Jesus as if he were God and not the Son of God. And this is what we were talking about earlier, that Jesus always referred to himself in a manner that would indicate that he was God and that there was no other God, kind of thing. Like he was not the Son of God. So that's another rabbit hole, but look up St. Ignatius papers or letters. Sorry, St. Ignatius letters.
Okay.
Okay, so classified CIA files reveals who Jesus really was and coming end of days. A book unearthed from the classified CIA files claims to reveal the true identity of Jesus Christ, the coming end of days, and details about UFOs. That could actually be the Book of Enoch for all we know, based on the stuff we've read in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's always some kind of ad, and it's always somebody doing something stupid. Anyway. Let's see. Declassified files from the CIA archives reveal the strange book, The Adam and Eve Story, dating from 1966. So there you go. There's the date you were asking for. 1966.
Okay.
I was a year off.
Good.
It is contained in a packet of other documents alongside an article from Time magazine and a transmittal slip. Listed on the handwritten documents includes a toolbox, tire gauges, key holder, and fender repair kit. The book, written by author Chan Thomas, not Chad Thomas, makes a string of outrageous claims about the history of the world and a coming cataclysm linked to the Bible story of Noah's flood. Daily Star Online can reveal Thomas appears to have been a UFO researcher working on a project for the U.S. Air Force. Reasons for the CIA's classification of this text and the other items is unknown, but its resurfacing has inflamed conspiracy theories. There they go again. Inflamed conspiracy theories. So let's see what they have to say about these inflamed conspiracy theories. I know there's probably a cream for that.
You know me as a nurse, I'm like, inflamed. You need a little corticosteroids.
Yeah, some hemorrhoid cream or something, whatever. Handwritten on the front of the scan book is, in quotes, for Art L. from, let's see, with the second name redacted by the CIA, of course, suggesting the text may have been seized for someone given it as a gift. Maybe it's Joe Biden's diary or whoever. Thomas makes a series of claims in the book. The world is subject to cyclical pole shifts. That's something I do believe happens. There's enough evidence of it. It claims civilization is wiped away every 7,000 years by this cataclysmic event. That's what I was kind of referring to earlier, which has been foreseen by figures throughout history, including Jesus. He claims Jesus is not the prophetic figure we now know him as in the Bible, but instead a scholar who trained in India. And it writes that Jesus had predicted a coming disaster and attempting to prepare people for the end times, with the last cataclysm being Noah's flood. Oops. Of course, I got this guy's forehead. Thomas claims to have translated Jesus's dying words on the cross, claiming he was actually speaking in the language he learned in India, in which he said, I am fainting, darkness is overcoming me. And he alleges on Easter Sunday, when Jesus is said to have ascended to heaven, he was actually picked up by a space vehicle, in quotes. The book's title, The Adam and Eve Story, comes from Thomas's assessment that the Genesis story is actually a parable about the collapse of a previous civilization and an extinction event before Noah's flood. He claims there are null zones in the Milky Way, our solar system passes through every few thousand years, which causes cataclysmic changes on Earth as the poles shift. None of Thomas's claims in this book are backed up by the modern understanding of the history or science. So yeah, they can pretty much negate everything we're talking about with this one line here. Moving on, get away from forehead here.
That's him.
This is Dr. Robert Wood, who was referenced a little bit earlier.
Okay, that's Robert Wood.
Yep. So Dr. Robert Wood mentions Chan Thomas's book in the article about his work on UFOs. Image CIA, of course. This is interesting here. Despite making such a string of outrageous claims, the CIA's oddly classified book becomes stranger when you look into Thomas. It is believed Thomas was part of a team employed by aerospace firm McDonnell Douglas. We always hear about McDonnell Douglas, by Robert Wood, or Dr. Robert Wood, who has since gone on to become a prominent expert in UFOs with the Mutual UFO Network. Wood names Thomas in an article published in 2007 as one of the men he employed to research UFOs. He describes the author as an exceptional, innovative man who claimed to be in contact with ETs. Dr. Wood confesses, however, he almost fired Thomas for his eccentric behavior, but described him as a total out-of-the-box thinker. Sorry, folks, this is a little longer, but I think we need to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Get it out of the way so I don't have to do another show on it.
Part 2.
Publication records held by WorldCat revealed Thomas's odd book was published in 1963, 1965 with a copy entering the CIA files in 1966. So from 1963 to 66, it got classified. The obscure book then went unpublished again in 1993 and hasn't been published since, but full versions can be found online. Internet conspiracy forums, of course. I wonder what the actual name of the forum is instead of just internet conspiracy forums, have stumbled across the book this year. Of course, I'm one of them. The CIA file being erroneously passed around as a banned book. Google Trends, of course, Google. They're right about everything. They wouldn't lie or hide anything. Google Trends reveals interest in Thomas and his book has increased 700% in the past 12 months. The truth is perhaps stranger than that a man working on a project linked to the UFO project at the U.S. Air Force wrote such an odd text that somehow ended up in highly classified files. See, there's not many more here. That particular. Thomas also begins his book with dedications to a string of the top U.S. brass, saying that without them, this book might not exist. He mentions U.S. Air Force General Curtis LeMay in 1960s military politics during the Cold War, who is credited with the famous quote, "Bomb them back to the Stone Age." I always wonder where that quote came from, actually. Bomb them back to the Stone Age.
Oh, my goodness.
Nice.
It seems like Hillary has said that a few times or two.
Bomb them back to the Stone Age. Actually, I think they said something to that effect in Godzilla, the movie Godzilla, anyway. That crazy dude who was in, where he was like a drug dealer who made meth in a trailer out in the middle of the desert. Oh gosh, what is his name? I can't remember it. But anyway, that's what it reminds me of, is that.
Okay.
What did Julie say? Let's see. One day in the Bible for God is 1,000 days to us. So God took 7 days to create everything. This guy says every 7,000 years life starts over.
That is fascinating.
I knew I married you for a reason. No.
That's a good catch, Julie. Very good catch. Wow.
That is a good catch. Might have to have her on the show once in a while.
Yes. Join us. That's fascinating.
So, all right, I'm not going to give her a big head. So let's move on here. I don't. He's going to probably yell something down the steps. The author also cites U.S. Air Force General Harold Grant, who was responsible for communications, and Admiral Rufus Taylor, an intelligence officer. We talked about Rufus earlier, who went on to work for the CIA.
Mhm.
It is unclear why Thomas has dedicated his book to these senior military figures, and he adds a message to the joint staff of that time, and thanking them for their thanking them for their inspiring encouragement. Closing off his introduction, Thomas writes, to all of those who, here's that word again, ridiculed, not ridiculed, ridiculed, scorned and laughed, relegating me to the nut house or even firing me.
Oh gosh.
For how else would I have been so driven to pursue, solve, and find and derive the truth I owe them? So I don't know. Don't know.
Those Jesuits, you know, they're very interesting to me. I'll tell you this, like one of the things that I think is interesting is like the way I look at the Jesuit CIA connection, only just because of some personal connections. It seems that the Jesuits are like the priests of science, you know. Most of when I look back on the history of the different explorations and things like that, it's like the church sends them in. The Catholic Church, I'm not trying to step on Catholics' toes. I know there's some Bible-based Catholics, and they don't go along with what Rome is doing, a lot of them, but it's that Jesuit, that segment of Catholicism, which are probably the infiltrators of Catholicism, and they tend to be the scientists, the astronomers, and all of that. So, and then they have the universities, like you have the Loyola
Marymount
and then Ignatius Loyola. His background is interesting. So I don't know. I'm just like, that's fascinating. And then they use the term like conspiracy theory, like theorists and stuff.
Right.
It's like, what is that all about? Is that like is that controlled opposition in a sense, like to throw that out there and make it already like people recoil when they hear conspiracy theorists, because that was used to shut down scholarship or questioning. So that's fascinating that there's something so intriguing to everyone about the flood account, the deluge, and I don't know. I think that's fascinating that you found this and that there's a CIA connection to something, some narrative about the flood and Noah and a cataclysmic event.
Yeah, it's every time I seem to go down some rabbit hole, it's kind of the same. Like you said, it's like a staged opposition kind of thing, disinformation, like we see it right now. And when a narrative is questioned, doesn't matter what that narrative is, there's always a phrase or some kind of something that they could say or do that tries to make the other party look silly or ridiculous,
Right.
or how could you possibly question the authority of the king or the pope or the whatever, And today it still is conspiracy theorists, like people, or racist or whatever. It's always some way of not only distracting you, pushing you from the narrative, but minimalizing you're that person, like now you make that person feel less of them, like they're not as intelligent as you are, somehow they're not as has an equal standing in society as you do, or whatever the case is. And we see it it's been, the playbook is so thin, we've seen it happen through history. I mean, it's unbelievable the old, the antiquated, it always seems to go back to the 1800s, or
It does.
the gaslighting that went on then too about a lot of stuff, and especially in England. I mean,
Oh gosh, yes.
There's a lot of weird crap going on in England with
Lots.
Jack the Ripper and all this other stuff going on, and Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1800s. Maybe we should do a show on the 1800s.
I would love that, because the 1800s is like, that's where I started saying, wait a minute, something's going on. That was my, as they say, an aha moment. I don't know. When I had to look deeper into the architecture, that's what really got me, is that every time, and I don't have to get books and sources outside of just going to Wikipedia, which I poo-pooed Wikipedia. I was like, Wikipedia is so whack.
Wikipedia's a joke.
Yeah, it's a whack. It's a whole government CIA op. But even though it is, I couldn't throw it away, because it's just
Right.
too easy to go and grab something from Wikipedia as like it's a springboard, because I get to see what is the official narrative. I'm going to look at Wikipedia first, in a sense, and see what are they talking about. And then you start to discern like what's going on. And you can actually debunk a lot of what history has taught, or how they've taught history, just by looking at Wikipedia. They tell on themselves, because they'll say, oh, this building was founded in 18 something. You're like, founded? How did you find a building?
Right.
That's what, just notice that, everybody. I dare you to go to Wikipedia if you want to look in your town and all the architecture in your town, which I don't even have to know your town, but I can tell you this. I'm pretty confident in saying this. You probably have Greek architecture, Roman architecture. You may even have an obelisk somewhere. You probably have Egyptian and Babylon. You may have a statue of Gilgamesh.
Mm-hmm.
City, like they have in San Francisco, that, like, when I realized they have a big old Gilgamesh in San Francisco, I'm like, why would we have Gilgamesh of all people standing in San Francisco? So if you take any building in your hometown that's huge, usually they are government buildings, they're libraries, they're schools. What else do they use them for, John? They usually use them for museums, things of that nature. So
anywhere where that's important, like in some way politically, or for the acquisition of knowledge or worship in some cases.
Oh, that's right. So they're universities and they're temples and churches. So when you look at the architecture of churches, and you're like, okay, go look in Wikipedia, go look at your favorite building in your hometown, go to Wikipedia, look it up. It's going to say something crazy. Get back to me and tell me, report it back, what they say about that building. It was either founded or it's something real strange. They won't say it was built. They won't go that far with their lies. I noticed that. Isn't that weird?
That is weird. And some areas seem to have that effect more than others. It's almost like the next generation or the next society kind of took over these buildings. Like they didn't build them themselves. They inherited them, so to speak.
Yes.
And it was kind of like a seamless transition. Like how did that happen? Like you said, it's like a lot of times they use the word founded in some of these areas and some of these buildings. And there's so many, well, I'm talking to the kettle here. There's so many different rabbit holes. Once you start down one, it branches off into another, and
it does.
And that's how things were hidden, because you would never find these other rabbit holes. You would never find these alternate, paths to different knowledge. If it was a clean transfer of knowledge, a clean succession, whatever you want to call it, you would have none of that. You would have, it would be, the knowledge would be indisputable. You would not be able to go down one of these side paths.
That's a really good point. It would, and that's what's compelling about it, is all the connections. It connects too much, too many. And I enjoy it because I love the detours that I get to take, because I'm currently doing Nimrod. And boy,
Nimrod's a big one.
Guess where I wound up, John and everybody? I wound up in Assyria, of all places. Assyria, and then I had started some research about the if I get it wrong, sorry, the Nestoretic, I think. So these are all of the Coptic Christians, and I'm very fascinated now. That's my new thing. I want to connect up with a lot of the Coptic Christians, because again, that's the Ethiopians too. So you have Coptic Christians in Egypt, you have them in Syria, you have the Assyrians, which are literally a group of Christians. They were keeping a lot of different text, and they spoke a language that is the Aramaic, I believe Aramaic. And that's another thing about the language. And then the Paleo Hebrew and stuff like that. And it's like, wow.
That sounds like something you'd find at Trader Joe's or something.
Paleo Hebrew.
Just bought me a loaf of Paleo Hebrew bread, and it's pretty good. It's non-sprouted Paleo Hebrew bread.
It's non-gluten.
They grow it right on the Nile or wherever. But anyway,
On the Nile, I love it.
Well, since we talked about it, we'll talk about this on another show. But just keep this in mind for another show.
Mm-hmm.
The Nile has been in different positions in its past. It hasn't been in its current position long, and some of these places along the Nile that were along the Nile at one time, like the Great Pyramids and that kind of stuff, had access to seawater. So we were talking about, because water was in a different place back then, and the Nile River was in a different place back then.
That's right.
So
we'll
talk about
plateau. The Giza plateau was all like water, like the Sphinx.
It was lush. That whole area was lush. The way it was described by the ancient Egyptians, it was lush. All the depictions in the hieroglyphs and stuff, it was a lush
paradise
landscape with alligators and all the other herons and things like that would normally live along waterways. And
that would be great to talk about, because the Nile is also fascinating, because when I'm in Ethiopia, they have the Blue Nile, and the Blue Nile is the only, this is a river that literally goes up a mountain. Did you guys know that the Blue Nile goes up a mountain, not down?
Like Dollywood.
That has to be explained. I never went down that rabbit hole. How can a river go up a mountain?
Let's go to Dollywood.
That'll explain.
I think they've got like a creek or something that goes uphill, and cars roll uphill or something there too. Like if you
put the
car there.
Wait, are you trying to tell me they have some kind of phenomena in Dollywood?
Something, yeah, something's down.
Is it like? Did you see the crazy one that I did on the mysterious spot that's in Santa Cruz, California? It's like this house.
I remember the words Santa Cruz, but I don't remember the whole.
It's tilted. The house is called the mysterious spot.
Oh yes, I do remember that now.
And
I think
weird.
The Lost Boys, the movie The Lost Boys, kind of
they talk about it.
Played into that a little bit. Like that's where these vampires lived. Was in this house that had collapsed in the earthquakes or the Great Quake or whatever, and it was below like the water line along the coast or whatever it was. It reminds me of that. I don't think it's that exactly, but it reminds me.
Right, but it's something weird because they say that this is like magnetically or something. It's spiritual. They say it's definitely like a cultic. Like if you go in it, it looks like you're standing to the side. Like everything in the house looks like it's tilting and leaning. And they say it's a vortex that lines up with another vortex that's somewhere in Oregon, maybe an Oregon vortex. Who are my vortex people? Who goes traveling to vortexes?
Right.
Hey, I'm not knocking it. Everybody has their thing. Some people go to hot springs, and
they're clearly established ley lines and vortex intersections and things like that. Like Sedona, Arizona, is a place that a lot of people go to because of the energy, because it supposedly has one of these energy vortexes there.
Definitely.
People swear by it, and they come from all over the world to go to Sedona, Arizona, to this specific area,
Mhm.
so they can get healed or relaxed or whatever problems they're having in their life or whatever.
I believe it.
And
And Karen knows that. Where else, Karen? They have something special going on in Mount Shasta. Have you ever been there, John? Mount
I have
Shasta?
never. You've probably been 1,000 places more than I've ever been. I've been a lot of places, just only in the United States. I
It's a
went
lot to
to a
see.
soccer tournament in Dundas, Canada, or whatever one time, but that was the only time I've ever actually been out of the country, was in Canada.
Okay.
Um,
It's a lot to
but
see.
no.
Like, I don't want to go anywhere right now. I want to just see stuff here.
There's a lot to see in the United States. I'm amazed at how much diversity there is in this country, not only of landscape, but people and things to
Right.
do and whatever. I have a fascination with like the Badlands, like where they found a lot of the fossils and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And it's just the color of the sides of the hills and the mountains and stuff, or
Wow.
whatever, like on the sunset, like the reds and whatever. Just like that area has, like in Utah and North Dakota,
gosh.
South Dakota, just
Right.
some beautiful areas.
Absolutely beautiful.
I-
You have stuff in Ohio. You got all that stuff in Ohio. I would
We
be.
do.
Have you
That's
done
where I
the
was
mound
going.
stuff? Have you gone to the mounds?
No, the mounds are going to be visited.
Okay.
There's some caves in southern Ohio, I think, too, that might connect. I'm not 100% sure, that might connect with the Mammoth Caves in Kentucky.
Really? Oh my gosh.
you
You have to
crying?
do a report. Do a on the spot, you and your bride, Julie, do some.
We're known for Bigfoot too. We're like the second or
really?
third, I think the second in sightings for Bigfoot. I've been fascinated with Bigfoot since I was a kid.
Oh,
But there's a show that actually takes place in Ohio. I think it's called Local Monsters or Local Area Monsters. Something. I don't know what the YouTube channel is called, but it's something to that effect. And they spend a lot of time in this Minerva, Ohio, to be specific.
it's called Minerva. Oh,
Minerva.
interesting name.
And so they have a lot of people that visit this area because it's, I guess, very well traveled from all the Bigfoot hunters and explorers and that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
So we're going to keep this format for the show because Jennifer and I love this format, and I hope you guys love it too. And I hope we
I
didn't
hope you love it.
piss too
This
many
is-
people off.
This is our way of doing coast to coast. We both love
Yes,
Norby.
exactly.
I'm
Like if
so
this was
glad
in
you
the
came up with
70s or the 80s, we would have a radio show.
That's right. I'm glad you came up with this idea. It's like, especially if you listen to Coast, that is like, if you are of the generation that loved George Norrie, and who was the guy before Norrie? It was.
I don't remember. Norrie was the guy I listened to the most, and it was always on, like I said, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a later hour.
Yes.
Always
it was
fascinating guests and topics and things like that. Just,
always. And it always
Yeah.
like started off with like, oh my goodness. Because I'll tell you this, John. I was working in LA and I worked night shift as a nurse. So we would always go to where do we get our tacos from, like Jack in the Box. I know that doesn't
Jack
sound
in the Box,
delicious.
yes.
We get our tacos from Jack in the Box because that's the only place open. And when you work night shift, you eat terribly. So you eat
Yeah, we had White Castle.
exactly right. Anything that's still open at 2 and stuff.
And
They
if
do-
anybody knows White Castle, you know that's like the absolute last resort place you would ever want to eat in your life. Because unless you wanted explosive diarrhea or something like that, I mean, you never ate, especially if you'd had a beer or two or something and you were coming home, never ever go to White Castle. Some states they're called Crystal.
Crystal. That's right.
Same
Crystal in
same
Georgia.
thing.
They
Yeah,
have
Crystal.
Crystal. Yeah, Crystal. But I don't think
Same
Crystal
thing.
is down in this part of Georgia. I think it's mainly like other parts of Georgia.
Well, you're in the southern part of Georgia, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
They don't have, it's like in Atlanta, they have Crystal.
Right. So just a tip for you guys, if you have a sensitive colon or whatever, like I do, you know which places affect your body and probably affect other human beings' bodies. But White Castle was that thing for me. So But Taco Bell, some of them around here back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s, they were open late. They were open till 2 o'clock or so, 3 o'clock, whatever it was. And back then you can get like 4 tacos for $1, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And
They always make it cheap, right? And there's always somebody willing to make the run for the food, because this was before Uber Eats when I was working in LA. And the thing about it, like I was the charge nurse. And I was like, we're listening to Coast to Coast if we're gonna work this shift. And they're like, oh no, we got to listen to her crazy conspiracy radio show.
but yes, to tie it to Karen says it. This is great. You guys are putting all aspects on the table. Yes.
Yay! I'm so glad you like it.
Format of the show. We're going to stick with it. So next week we might start with a topic of whatever, but as you can see, it went off the rails fast. So
I'm sorry, John. I took it off the rails. John,
that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea, is to do that, because that's how your natural thinking process goes. That's how your curiosity goes. It's never linear. It's never, you intend it to be linear or, a certain path, but it never is that. It never is. And speaking of which, this is, yes, this is for Julie. She'll know, she'll recognize this reference if she's still watching. I don't know if she is, but
no way. Is he drinking? What is that, John? Is it beer? What is he doing? He's living a better life than I am right now.
Yeah. We came up with the phrase, I don't remember if it was me or her, but it was like, everybody love a monkey. That was like the phrase, like everybody love a monkey, because there was, as I was doing a little research on NFTs and stuff like that, there's an artist that does images like, of like what you would think a person like, yeah. He would depict him like standing by a car, like in the 60s or something, but it had a chimp head on it, like in like a beer belly or whatever. And they were, I don't know. And this phrase came out of that for some reasons, everybody like a monkey. And it's like true, like everybody likes a monkey or a chimp or whatever. It's like,
except my daughter, she hates monkeys. When we go traveling and we see monkeys, I'm like, monkeys, and I want to go.
Do you remember the show? Do you remember the show Lancelot Link?
Oh, that sounds familiar. Why do I know that?
He was a chimp that was like a private eye.
Oh no!
I have the DVD. Made me laugh so hard as a kid. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp. It was a series that's the name of it. Lancelot Link Secret Chimp.
That sounds like something my cousins watched.
So I'll probably play something to get this channel to get a strike, but whatever. Just so you get an idea of what it is here.
This has gone everywhere, hasn't it?
Yeah, it literally has gone everywhere. So why not? Tell me if there's no sound. But
strange. Why does this look familiar? Oh no. It was 17. Oh God. Oh no, they can never have this day. It's like a hippie band.
Anyway, you get the idea. So everybody like a monkey.
Oh, that's funny. That
Wanted to end on something funny. I needed a snort, and I heard the snort, at least a couple of them. So
No, did I wake Joseph? Josephine is sleeping through it all. Oh boy.
anyway, so I think we'll end it about there because
Yeah.
we could do this all night, and we got to break them up in segments so people continue to watch the show.
Have to pace ourselves.
Leanne says,
I try, Leanne. I try not to. My mother always thought I was going to do that in front of somebody one day that, would it would not be good. I try not to. That was so funny. Oh my God. That was like a giggle snort riot that you just played. And it's like a weird memory. Like I remember that. They had so many weird shows like for our generation, John. How did we turn out so normal? We were watching Witchy Poo and
yeah,
Banana.
this is the one that started it for Jennifer.
I can't. That had me. I can't. I will be. That's terrible.
I sent her own personal copy, so she has one. And
That hurts me. That's funny.
so if you haven't watched any of Jennifer's videos, go to her channel. She just put one out yesterday, I believe. Why Satan hates why Satan, is it hates or hated? Hates Adam and Eve.
Hates. Yeah, I'm getting trolled on that one.
Yeah, she's got some haters on that one already. So when they're coming at you like a spider monkey for something like a subject or whatever, they've probably never watched the whole video. I find that a lot. People don't watch the whole video. They just go by the title or maybe the first minute or so or whatever. They don't take the time to
make a comment.
watch. Yeah, exactly.
The cat that's banging on the, like, I'm gonna tell her she's not biblical. I'm like, okay, can you cool it? Like, I like that YouTuber. What's he called? Like Everything Inside Me, which I think he used to be another name. If anybody knows who I'm talking about, Everything Inside Me. Wasn't that Vigilant Christian? Maybe is that him? But anyway, Vigilant Christian is really good too. But this guy who does Everything Inside Me, he makes a nice disclaimer at the beginning of the video. He says, "Please watch the entire video before you won't be." I like the way he says it. So you won't have a misunderstanding. Please watch the video to the end. And that's not a lot to ask, is it? Don't make a comment. Like sometimes I have to pause the video and say, "This is amazing," but I don't pause it and say, "You are lying." It's like, watch the whole thing.
Yeah, watch the whole thing. And to that point, for anybody that's watching now or that will be watching in the future or whatever, watch the beginning of the video at least, because don't skip around, because both Jennifer and I explain the reason why we're doing this, and you shouldn't be going off all cold cocked and going off the rails. And we're not trying to make you believe anything you don't want to believe. There's no right or wrong. We're just presenting things and talking about things. And yeah, it goes outside the norm for a lot of people. It goes outside their comfort zone, but we're open-minded enough to at least talk about this and present it. Like Jennifer and I may not even be on the same page on some of this stuff, and which is fine. I mean, that's the America that I grew up in, and that's kind of, it's hard to find people like that you can, like, some of your best friends or people that you don't agree with. And
Mhm.
it was that way when I was a kid. Some of my best friends in the block, as they called it, the block, everybody had the block. Some of my best friends we were constantly arguing with each other, but we always were friends. We always hung out with each other. We always
Mhm.
went to McDonald's or to get ice cream or play soccer or whatever it was.
Right. That's
So
mature.
so take everything with a grain of salt. Don't take it for absolute truth. Do your own mind searching or your own, what is that, vision quest or whatever the Native Americans called it, like your own, like get your own peyote hut and go on a vision quest and see where that takes you. Because we don't need the peyote hut to go down this to do this, but just take it for what it is. It's entertainment, but hopefully you get something out of it. Hopefully it makes you think about the world a little differently than you currently do, and have fun. Obviously we have fun with this, and that's the whole point of the show. Is, I mean, we live in such a clown world right now, and people are taking things way too seriously. That we need to do this. We need to do this, and it's just,
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite things in the week, is doing this show. Because it's funny, it's happy, it's upbeat, and
Right.
do we talk about some serious things? Yeah, we do, but
Mhm.
just nix the attitude.
Yeah.
You
Get
have
yourself,
you
right?
have the ability to hit the stop button or the pause button or move to a different channel or whatever. That's just,
There you are.
if
Option.
the subject matter doesn't align with what you believe or doesn't, resonate or whatever, no biggie. There's plenty
Yeah.
of other videos to watch.
No hurt feelings, right? It's just like, I just feel like, at least I love that you and I can talk about this. It's just, that's all we're doing is talking. And that's why I said it should be harmless, because there's so many subjects that are being talked about. Why can't Christians talk about things other than what's been canonized? Like, can we just be scholars, you know? Some things, yeah,
Mhm.
they're gonna stick right out and say, I don't know. And that's okay. Like, you know, it's okay.
Yep, absolutely. Casey says she's a friend of 45 years, didn't agree on anything. Sounds like the Golden Girls, but still friends that long, and we laugh about it. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome, Casey. I love that. Like, that shows a lot of maturity. It really does. Yeah.
So with that being said, you guys are awesome. Thanks for everybody that's stuck around this long. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you. Again, next week, don't know what the subject's going to be, but I guarantee it will be entertaining, and might have a monkey or two, and
Poor cat.
or a cat. That's right. But something, it'll have something.
The cat looks
So
like he's waking up now.
yeah, she's getting pissed. She's like, I don't like your videos. That's why I'm hiding behind you.
Oh gosh.
She's
Oh, no,
actually like, she's erasing your board behind you.
you're right. She would do something like that. You know what she does? She's right now, she's going to start scratching on the wall. Cats are so rude, aren't they?
Yeah, pardon my French, but sometimes cats are assholes.
My daughter says that. Like, they really are sometimes. That's why I like them. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Julie. That's so awesome. Good night, everybody. Karen. Oh, Josephine, you know your friend. This is Karen's friend, Josephine. You know, Josephine is saying meow.
Yeah, she's. So we're I'm gonna go have some late dinner and think about what I'm gonna do for the next show, or what we're gonna do, or start with. And usually the way the process works is I'll send something to Jennifer, she'll send something back, and then, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And I'll send something back. No, I haven't. Blah, blah. And so it ends up evolving that way.
Mhm. I love it.
But-
It's a process.
But thank you guys. Love you all. You
Love
guys
you
are awesome. The comments are great as well on the videos.
Thank you.
Share with your friends or whoever you think would enjoy this. And watch. I wholeheartedly suggest watching the video that was at the beginning of the show and that we had on last week. for the midnight ride for David Carrico and John Pounders. Is that his name? John
Yeah,
Pounders.
John Pounders. They're
Um,
great. Midnight
very,
Ride,
very, 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 very interesting. So
very.
if you want some late night watching or whatever, that's some good stuff there. Again, don't have to believe it, but it's very well researched and comes from a couple Bible scholars. So there you go.
There you go.
Alrighty, guys. So Karen, thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
And yes.
Thank you.
So thank you all. You guys are a great community. And until next week, be happy, stay frosty, watch some chimp videos, watch Lance Salt Link, whatever. Now you know something you probably didn't know yesterday. So, all right, guys. Good night. Jennifer, I will see you next week, and I'm sure I'll talk to you.
All right. Take care. God
All right.
bless you.
Good night.
Good night.